I just saw that, Fisherman. Yeah, I just saw that he went live at the same time I did. That's kind of funny. Well, the internet's big enough for all of us. So, that's good. I saw that he went live right now, too. By the way, I would tell my friends that are here... Oh, let me get this out. I would tell my friends that are here to go hang out with Salty instead of me. And this is why. Salty has really big news today, and I'm really, really glad for him. So... make sure that for you guys that know Salty, go check out his stream. Skip mine. Go watch his. People on YouTube, you're stuck with me. There's no option for Salty over for you guys, but for people on Twitch, Salty is he's got good news over there. So, all right, what are we doing today though? We are doing a little bit. We're live, right? Obviously, so people can ask me questions. Suresh, you can guess the news if you want to. Let me make sure the sound's good. You guys can hear me? Good. I'm nice and close so you get your ASMR and all that stuff out of the way. But we are going to start. We were talking the other day about, we've been doing the Socratic method of learning. And Socrates was this guy who he basically would sit people down and do philosophy. And the way he would do it is he would ask people questions. He'd say, why do you think that? And how did you come to that conclusion, right? And it doesn't fit directly into technology, but it does fit in some way in that we should understand. It helps us to internalize things when we ask questions and when we solve problems for ourselves. Like if somebody just always solves problems for you, you're probably not going to be a very good engineer in the troubleshooting because you never went through that process of fixing things for yourself and figuring out how you want to go troubleshoot things and those kind of stuff. We talk about troubleshooting in other labs, and I try to help you guys out with some methods that you can use for that. But today we're going to do Ansible, and as we do it, I've got the book up here, but the book's not the focus. The focus is actually a lot of questions that are similar to the book, but they're different. So this is our learning Ansible through the Socratic method, right? And basically what we're going to do is we're going to do the labs for anybody that wants to do labs with me. And then what we'll do is we'll go back and we'll ask ourselves questions. Can I do this? Can I verify that Ansible's installed on a system? Can I, and we're going to go all these different ways and figure this stuff. Adam over on YouTube said, could you explain the difference between Ansible and Kubernetes? Yeah, so Kubernetes is a way to deploy and manage, it's a full stack of deploying and managing containers. And you do that through a thing called pods, and you go and you put them out on nodes, and it's software-defined networking, so you don't have to do any of the networking crap anymore. All you do is define the way that you want things to happen through either declarative or imperative commands, and you go and you push things out and deploy them. That's what Kubernetes is. Ansible is nothing like that. Ansible is one node or multiple nodes sitting out there controlling other nodes to act the way that they need to. So Ansible and Kubernetes are in no way related, besides they're both typically in Linux systems, I guess. Those are ways that they're similar. I actually have a pretty good answer for the Ansible thing as far as... I don't want to pull it up right now, but the point is Ansible is Terraform versus Ansible is a little bit different question. Well, one, they're both owned by the same company now, IBM, which is interesting. Terraform tends to be when I want to do new deploys, I will use Terraform. New deploys up into the cloud. I'm mostly an AWS guy, but I have done deployments up to Azure as well. Terraform is my go-to for new deployments, that kind of stuff. Ansible is when I come into environments, because a lot of my contracting, like you guys know that I do contracting stuff. Oh my God, I'm just getting question after question on the YouTube side. But Terraform versus Ansible is Terraform is typically when it's new stuff. On my contracting stuff, I almost always come into big high performance compute clusters that are already running, and my preferred method for that is always Ansible. And my preferred method for deploying stuff in that way is always Ansible. That's me though. Not everybody else likes that. Terraform versus OpenTofu. Well, OpenTofu is open source. Terraform is business source license as of I think August 10th of last year when all that stuff happened with HashiCorp, which by the way makes a lot of sense now since they went over to the IBM side of things. But anyways, all right. I don't need to get, guys, I'm not great at the not the political stuff, but the I don't try to get into all the drama that other people do. They want to get everybody fighting each other. I just want to do technical stuff. So let's just do technical stuff. Here is Lab 1. Some of you guys have seen Lab 1, probably enough to be sick of it. But I'm going to link it. Actually, I just dropped it in over on the Twitch side, and then it's over on the YouTube side as well. We don't really have a pinning function over there, but it'll be there for you guys that want to do it with me. And the first one is installing Ansible. So in this first lab, it says your team has decided they need a tool that they can use to control and operate many servers that you have. Ansible, again, comes from, well, okay, so there's a little bit to the story, and you guys can go read about it. But the engineers that made it were referencing Ender's Game with the answerable device, right? It was called Ansible. However, Orson Scott Card said that he took it from, I forget the author's name, but she was like a sci-fi author in, like, I think 60s and 70s. But anyways, they were referencing his use of it, not hers, which I think is interesting because they don't always draw that distinction if you go read the background of it. But anyways, you've been tasked with evaluating Ansible. We need to get it installed. We need to get it up and running in our environment. So install Ansible and put the version output into a file called root version. So that is just for the lab. That's not something that you would do in the real world, but it's just something you might do when you're testing in a lab. So we're going to say apt-y install Ansible. Well, what we know right there, we might say, well, what do I know about that? If I just said apt install Ansible and I didn't change any package repositories, or I didn't add any apt repositories from anywhere, that means it's part of the base packages, right? Actually, I can see exactly where it came from because it'll tell me where it went to look for the different packages. So I can see that it was a base package for Ubuntu, right? But I want to know what version of Ansible it is, what version of Python is it compliant with, and is it going to work with, because Ansible always needs Python, right? Doesn't need an agent, which is one of the reasons so many people love it. It does not need an agent, but it does not need, but it does need Python rather on all of its devices. So, all right. So that's installed, and let's look at the version. Here's the Ansible version. It's 2.96. And it's going to use Python version 3.8.10. So that's good. It can use newer versions of Python, even though 2.96 is a pretty old version of Ansible. All your older versions of Ansible are still going to work with most things. In fact, all of the Ansible built-in stuff that comes later is backwards compatible with what we do in these labs. But eventually, one day, it won't be. So that's kind of an important thing to know and think about. All right, hold on. All right, change that. So let's check the version and throw it into a file. So now we have that in a file. We can cat root version, right, and see that there's the configuration information. All right, so we've got that. We hit check. Our lab says we're good. Now we're going to go read a little bit about the stuff that came onto the system. So let's ask real quick, now that I've got Ansible installed, let's ask ourselves some questions as systems engineers. And this is what I'm talking about, like the Socratic method. Can you prove to me that Ansible's installed on this device? Like if I came to a device and somebody told me Ansible was on it, do I know how to verify that Ansible is on there? What would you do? What would you think about doing? Would you maybe just type in Ansible, hit tab a few times, and there's that? Yeah, that's interesting. Might you say which Ansible? Or where is Ansible? And what are those going to do? They're going to look in the paths for Ansible, right? Yeah, which Ansible is one that I would absolutely use. Where is Ansible? Which Ansible? How about if you know the package manager, what if this is a new box and you've never been on it? You might need to go look at the release to see what type of server. Oh, I'm on an Ubuntu box. Okay. I know it's dpackage then, right? It's not RPM. And so dpackage-L, grep-I for Ansible. And, oh, DPKG. My bad. I spelled it wrong. Look for Ansible. There's Ansible. And I see it's 296. So that's good. So there's different ways to approach things, right? Some people might just say, Ansible and just hit it. See what happens, right? There's all kinds of different ways to check things in the systems world. And all of those are pretty safe. All those things I just showed you aren't going to take the box down. Yeah. I had a lot of which Ansibles over on the YouTube side. Yeah. Which Ansible? It says user bin Ansible. Now I know which path it's in, by the way, right? Which is good. I mean, may be useful if I had a different version of Ansible I wanted to call or I wanted to build somewhere. So, okay, all right, we did all those things. And I said, save the number of modules. So we're going to go look at some stuff. Which Ansible is always better for personal choice? Yeah, I'm okay with that. Yeah. I tell people all the time, I'm not going to tell them how to do stuff, right? There's a lot of ways to get this. Which Ansible, where's Ansible, dpackage-l to see if it's there. There's a lot of ways. Again, I told you guys you could type in Ansible and just hit tab a bunch. Most modern Linux systems are going to accept the tab input, and they're going to tell you, hey, here's all your options, buddy. You got to go down to Ansible, though, because if you just type in A, it's going to give you like 200 options for all the A commands. And maybe I don't want to go digging through them. But that's all the stuff that got installed with Ansible on my box. All right, so that's cool. So I can say, I can say Ansible-doc -- help. And it'll tell me about how I can use this Ansible doc, right? Which, by the way, for some of my friends have taken the RHCE. I've never taken the RHCE, but if you go sit that, you can actually use Ansible doc at the command line to help you find things out about Ansible, because you can't use the internet, but you have to build stuff with Ansible. So you may need to go look up some arguments or different ways that your commands might work, right? So here I can say Ansible doc -l, and this is going to dump so much stuff to my screen. It's just going to dump so much. I'm doing page by page right here. Tremendous amount. I'm hitting spacebar for page by page. You can go line by line with enter or up and down, and then you can hit Q to exit that. But if I just want to see how long that is, I can count up all the lines by piping it to word count -l, right? So I pipe it over to word count -l, and that tells me that there are about 3,387, give or take a little, of these modules, or what they like to call, it's interesting when you hit this here. It doesn't have it at the top here. Let's just run it with the help. It'll call them here plugins. And plugins are kind of a loose term. When we actually are calling the individual things, they are modules. So like we're calling the copy module, or we're calling the file module later on. But there are other things that are also involved called plugins. And then there are also things called callbacks. So you can go and look at all of these different things that are there, all these different types, the become, the cache, the callback. So there's a bunch of ways for you to go play with Ansible in all these different ways as you're kind of learning how to do it, right? Okay, so we got that. And then we go and we're going to just throw that into the modules command so that we have root modules, right? And then, oh, Robodom pinned that for me. Thank you, Robodom, over on the Twitch side. So now we can go look at the Ansible doc -s for setup. And this will give me, again, over here, it's interactive, so I can scroll up and down. And setup is a command that's going to give me a bunch of information about my machines. I'm going to see that here in some of the future labs. But I can set the fact path to just look certain areas for local Ansible files. The default fact path is etc Ansible setup. Yeah, I believe it's etc Ansible setup. We'll do that in one of the labs coming up too. Filter, I can filter down with a FN match style filter, which means that I can say, like, I want kernel asterisk, and it'll find everything as a FN match style, which is an awesome way to match things. It's really easy. It doesn't have to be in regex if you guys don't like dealing with regex, which fine. I mean, there's also gather subset, because when we get into gathering our setup and doing our gather facts, it's going to be about 16 pages per server of just data. So you can do subsets. You can say all is the default, by the way. You can do minimum, hardware, network, virtual, OHI, and factor. So there's all these different things that you can gather. And I will tell you, between 0 and, let's say, in my experience, 0 and 500 servers, I will hit 2,600 nodes sometimes. It absolutely matters, especially if you're not hitting everything. Maybe you just need the network data. It absolutely matters, because the amount of RAM you're using for all of that extra data and all of those extra key value pairs of all of those extra servers, it absolutely starts to matter to performance. And I say that coming from I've run Ansible as on a control node that was 512 cores and 2 terabytes of RAM, and I have still brought that core to that whole system to its knees, because I was trying to hit all of those nodes and gather all of their facts, just kind of for fun to see how long it took. And it still took, 512. Yeah, Suresh, I've worked with some massive systems in my time. And that was 4 years ago now. In fact, I'm going back on that project. It's a NOAA project. It got my closed captionings right. I should be back on that project. I mean, we'll see. We'll see where it all goes. We never know. I work for a company that contracts me out to different people, so I end up going to different projects and stuff in the high performance compute space. And Ansible is like absolutely one of my go-tos for how I talk to these systems. It's okay, Suresh. It's good. I mean, it's stable to have a company to work for and then do all that stuff. But okay, so enough talking about that stuff. I hit Q to get out of that. And then let's go look at the copy module. The copy module has a few more arguments to it. We can go look at the arguments. We can go up and down through them. I can use checksums, which uses a SHA-1 sum. We see that in some of our other labs as well. We need a destination, because if you're going to copy somewhere, there's somewhere it's going. And you also need a source. You need a source. Not a remote source, but a source. Source right here. And that's a local path. So there's a local path and then a remote path, or a local path and then of where its source is and the destination. But hold on, what's this remote source? This is an interesting thing. And this is something that's important for you guys to know, because I've shown this before and I've explained this, because this becomes really important. Why might we want to know the difference between a remote source and a local source? And then also think of the way that you store things in a cluster, right? Let me go, while you're thinking of that, the difference between a remote source and a local source from my machine. Let me go see if I have any of these that are just empty. We'll just go to our questions page here. We're on a different presentation in the background here. That's our cybersecurity one. We'll just do it in here. It's fine. It doesn't matter where I do it, right? It doesn't matter where I draw this. But I want to show you guys something real quick. Why would remote source matter? So we've got our, this is our Ansible. And this is, I'm just going to draw it like this. It'll be a cloud. We'll say 500 nodes. And on this Ansible machine, I'm pushing over and I'm running these tasks. And I'm going to copy to these machines. And then back here, I have my, over here, back end. So I'm going to call this my high speed storage. Got my high speed storage, right? I'm doing a copy command. And the question here is, how does just a regular, we've got a source and a destination, right? As we're doing these commands, we got a source and a destination. But then do we use a remote source or not? And why? And all these nodes are over here connected to this. And why might we have this? Those are nodes, not wodes. Those are nodes, networks, network devices, nodes. All right. Anyways, why might we, this remote source, let's go read it again. Can we, just real quick, I know I'm kind of going far afield for my normal stuff, but just think about this for a second. Oh, that's my home stuff. Pull up this again. Remote source says, influence whether source needs or is already present remotely. If no, it will search for the source on the originating machine. Okay, that's on my Ansible machine. And if yes, it will go to the remote target machine for the source. So I want you to think about this real quick. I'm pushing right here. My copy is a source of a 500 meg file. So I've got over here on this machine 500 meg. And I do this sometimes. I will push over an ISO, right? It's an ISO, and it's going to be mounted on all those nodes so that they can install InfiniBand drivers. This is a very common, when you do InfiniBand updates on servers, you almost always update them by, hold on a second here real quick. Yeah, you almost always update them by using like an ISO and mounting the ISO and then running the updater, right? But I want you to think about this. If this machine does a source from this machine, this network right here, which is probably your 10 gig, it's probably a 10 gig ETH, right? Is going to have to push 500 megs to 500 nodes. Does anybody want to try to do the math on how long that's going to take right here? Probably going to take you the rest of your life. Definitely the rest of the time you work for that company when they find out you don't know how to use Ansible. Anyways, all right, I'm just kidding. But what if I tell these nodes that all have like, HSS mounted here, this path here, I tell all those 500 nodes on this high-speed storage over their back-end InfiniBand network, their InfiniBand high-speed network, I tell them, hey, all of you guys, the remote source is yes or true, you can use either, and they go pull that down themselves. How long do you think it takes 500 nodes on high-speed storage that's about, let's say, 200 gigabits per second for each node into like a high-speed cluster of GPFS? How long do you think it takes them all to pull 500 megs down? Probably the time it took me to drop my pen and go like that. So the way you do things affects how fast your playbooks are. And it's tremendously important as you get to these big scale. And I'm telling you, I work on big scale systems. Pushing it from one device is absolutely untenable. And you go, wait a minute, Scott, hold on. I know that Ansible can have multiple controllers and you can split that work out and you can push it from 10 nodes. And I say, I don't care. 10 nodes pushing that data there would still be all night, right? 500 megs to each of the nodes. It would be a cluster, but all of those nodes can go grab it and pull it down themselves over the high speed, because we're talking different networks, right? You guys have been, so some of you have seen my high performance compute stuff, where we talk about the different networks we have, and it's way faster to just pull the stuff down. Also, if they're at different steps of the playbook, you're also there's also the idea that they're not maybe all doing the same thing at the same time, depending on how you set the cadence of the playbook and break up the number of forks and all those kind of things. But yeah, I'll hit a bunch of nodes at the same time and they'll all just go pull stuff. By the way, 500 nodes is really small for me. I hit way more than that on a normal deployment, right? But I was just saying that as an example. So we go back over here and we've done all the things for the lab, right? This is the goal of this, is to do the lab. And it says, look at you learning Ansible, you solved the challenge. So I'm going to clear the screen up here. We've got all these things to think about with Ansible. We installed Ansible right here. But these are all the commands I did in this lab. And now we have to answer these questions. What is the version of Ansible you're using? Does anybody know how to get that? Anybody remember that from here? Or you just know how to do it? What's the version of Ansible that we're using in here? Or I know Suresh is running Ansible at home. Do you know the version of Ansible you're using at home? Right? It's going to be one of these type of commands, right? By the way, for systems people want to be a systems engineer, bang 4. So exclamation mark 4 can rerun that command for me. So any command in your history, you can do an exclamation mark and rerun that command. You can also rerun that command and change things with sed if you want to. We'll do that in some other labs here, but Hetanis uses whatever version came out. Well, that makes sense. I've been using Ansible since 2013, so that makes sense. But maybe early 20. No, yeah, it was late 2013, early 2014. I started using it. So I'm not saying that to be like cool or anything. I'm just saying I've been using this tool a long time, and it has always done what I needed it to. All right. So why is it important to know the version of Ansible you're on? Let me posit this. The docs should always be right because it's there. But what if I said, okay, I'm on version 296. Do I remember CF Engine? I don't remember using CF Engine, no. But check this out, right? I say Ansible docs, right? And I go to the Ansible documentation. And maybe I need to look up some specific things. So I say Ansible module for copy, right? I want to look up copy. Yep, there's shout out to Fisherman. We're trying to get Fisherman to stream more, guys. So some of you probably want to put some pressure on him. But look, the latest version of this does not show me right here. This right here in the examples, these won't work for me. Ansible.builtin.copy, those are for version 3 and on. They don't work in 2.9. So I need to come back up here and change back to 2.9. This is one of the reasons, by the way. Fisherman, I can guarantee you, if you go do that AI stuff and those large language models you've been working with, everybody will be going over there and messing with you. Everybody will be over there and be like, what's Fisherman doing? Oh, he's got it says right here that he's doing AI and ML, and everybody will hang out with you, Fisherman. Yeah. By the way, guys, if you don't know, if you go join our Discord, which RoboDom's been posting our Discord, if you go in there and if you join the Discord, the little bot that's always in meeting people and all that stuff and talking trash, you can ask it questions and stuff. That was all written by Fisherman. So if you want to go and mess with that kind of stuff, that's what he's been doing. So feel free to join the Discord. Discord's always free. And back to this. Why is it important to know the version? Well, because I want to be able to read the docs, guys. There's almost nothing. There are things that are worse, but There's almost nothing worse in the tech and engineering side of things than to go read some stuff on the internet and have it be for some older or newer version than what you're using. All right, better yet, Shark wants to see Ranger. There's Ranger. He's downstairs. I saw him moving around when I first started stream, so I know he's still alive. I jokingly say that, but I mean, he is an old dog, and I am going to be quite sad one of these days, I'm sure. But he's doing pretty good downstairs still. He is kept at, it is 94 degrees in Phoenix right now. Might be cooling off a little bit because it's later in the day. But he is kept at a 73 down there. He's got his own little fireplace. I assure you he's as snug as any dog who has ever had to just get up and bark every now and then when somebody knocks on the door. He's a good dog, though. Yeah. He looks... Yeah, and actually, when my wife had her friends over on Sunday night, they took his other bed. So his other bed's in the other room. So now he's taken over more of my house than he ever had before. Yeah, and some of you guys that were around for Christmas, you remember we put his own little Christmas tree up over here, even though we had the big tree out front, the one Christmas tree. So we stole his furniture because he used to have couches out here. And anyways, so there's all that. Also, for you guys that want to go meet up with Fisherman about the, what's that called? The bot stuff, you know, making your little AI bots and chat bots and stuff with Discord. He's been messing around with AI and making me look like I'm a big tough guy or something, which I think is actually really funny. So, all right. Yeah, Ranger has the whole downstairs to himself. I pretty much live upstairs and go downstairs every now and then, like give him a high five, give him a treat, give him a couple of head shakes, and then he just lays around because he's, you know, almost 13, so he's kind of a little bit older. All right. So what's the version of Python that we found? 3.8.10. So that's important to know. Why is it important to know? Well, because we need to know what functions. We need to know if something breaks, we need to make sure that we can get it to work. Just upscale the existing pics. Yeah, Fisherman. I'm glad that the second one actually got it right, that I literally have no hair on me. So, yeah, it's a better pick, better representation. By the way, we've got a thing up there. You guys have seen my arms before, but there's a poll up there in the Discord of how many tats you guys think I have. If it helps any, for people to decide, I had a troubled childhood. I went in the U.S. Army Infantry. I did deploy to Iraq in 2003. And I've been doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for 20 years. So those are all data points that may indicate that I do have tattoos, or may not. You guys can use that information however you want. But there's a poll of how many tattoos you guys think I have, which I think is hilarious. Well, Fisherman, maybe I got some tattoos since before then. I don't know. Go vote in the poll if you're so sure. Go look at who else has voted in the poll. How's that? All right. It says, what is a required argument for the copy module? Well, we drew this up. Why is it important to know? Well, we need to know where things are coming from and where they're going to, right? So if we're going to use copy, we have to have a source and a destination. Remote source is not required. That's something that might be there. All right. So let's keep going. Let's keep doing this. The labs are, again, the labs stand alone, and the book is also there for the labs. I had the book pulled up earlier. The book is other things to think of. What tool installed Ansible for us? We use apt, right? That's a valuable thing to understand. You could also have used yum. That would have worked. You could have also went and built it from source. It's an open source tool still. What version of Ansible are we using? 2.9.6. We need to know how to know that. We might need to know that for our own records and for going to look stuff up. We also might know that for our GRC team. Our governance, risk, and compliance team may come around and go, hey, what the scanner found that you guys are on this old version of Ansible. When you plan on updating that? And you're like, I don't want to ever update it because then I got to update all my playbooks. But the point is they're going to come through and ask for that. I think there's even some tools nowadays that can kind of fix playbooks, so you can play with those if you want. If you trust them, I would definitely make a copy before I run anything against it. What version of Python is Ansible using? 3.8.10. Are there any other modules you can find in Ansible doc-l that are interesting to you? This one's interesting. So look, what about Ansible doc-l? And then we grep in here for AWS. Maybe I just want to know, what's all this AWS stuff? There's all these AWS type ones, and maybe there's something interesting in here, and I can use Ansible to deploy things and pull things out. I used to use Ansible to deploy things up into the cloud before I'd ever heard of Terraform or cloud formations. I used to use Ansible to like deploy VMs and pull them, destroy them and all that kind of stuff. But there's all kinds of things you can write to SNS topics. You can make SNS topics if you have the right permissions. You need all that kind of stuff too. We're also going to probably have some labs coming up again. We just had one of the guys in our Discord pass the Solutions Architect Pro. So that's at least 3 of us I know. I think there's a 4th one of us that have our Solutions Architect Pro. Yeah, I think there's 4 of us or so. And we're probably going to be focusing, some of us are going to go do the data engineering. It's a new AWS cert, so some of us are going to go do that one. I'm mostly doing that stuff for fun at this point, but I am also very interested in data engineering. It's a big part of my doctorate program that I'm working on and those kind of things. So that's kind of good to do. Okay. And what is a required argument for the copy module? You need source and destination. Those are required, right? All right. So we can get out of here and we can go on into the next lab. And the next lab is going to be host file and inventories. So I'm going to link this lab to you guys on the... I'm going to unpin that one, Robodom. I will pin this on the Twitch side, and I will pin it for you guys. Well, I can't pin it. I don't know how to on the YouTube side. I know YouTube doesn't actually accept it as a pin, so I don't know what it ends up being, but it doesn't work exactly like that. But we're going to go in this lab, and you guys that want to work on it with me can, and those of you that don't, do not have to. But here's some questions here from the book. But we're going to focus over on the, so here's the Socratic method says, can you show the version of Ansible? Well, right here, I should be able to say Ansible-V. There's our version. It should be installed on, dash version. Right, there we go. And that shows the version of Ansible, so we're good in the new lab. And then it says, can you show the documentation for the URI module? Ansible doc-s URI, that's the name of the module, right? And that should give me information. Oh, there's body. I could put the body as JSON, or if I have it as URL encoded, body format down here. So there's a bunch of things that I might want to read about. I am a big fan of just going to, go into this and then say URI, right? And then I'll go find the URI module. I'll go back to 2.9, and oh, they don't have one for 2.9. It's the same. Oops. It's interesting. Oh, it's URI test. I just need the URI module. URI module. Let's just do it this way. Ansible built-in URI. There we go. And this will come up. And again, this is why we want to know the version so much. Can we show the documentation? I'm a big fan of... Once this stops spinning. Go here. And then URI is how we can go and pull information if we want to use Ansible to hit APIs. And I almost exclusively use Ansible to hit APIs and pull information for me. And then I can do different things with the data. We're going to do that a little later if we get that far in the lab today. If we don't get that far today, we'll just keep going. And Control Byte, thanks for being here. Control Byte was a big part of writing a lot of these labs. He really helped me make sure that they were kind of tightened up and working for people, right? But over here, the question is, so we hit start and say, create an Ansible file called root hosts with the information. So we're going to pwd ls, those are free, and vi root hosts. And in there, we're going to make a inventory for servers with control plane and node 01. Those are going to be the 2 nodes in here. Yep. There's one node, and then host name is the node I'm on. So control plane and node 01. If we cat our root hosts, it is the simplest little ini file I could make. It is the simplest thing, and it's just right there. Servers, control plane, node 01. Now, Ansible has a bunch. Ansible has a bunch of inventories. There are a bunch of different ways to build your inventory in Ansible. I'll give you guys this doc right here. Link this over to you guys. Although I think most of you could probably Google this stuff just as easily as I am. But how do we build our inventory? This is, guys, there's a part of this that's really critical. And you might say, oh, Scott's like going way too simple. Scott's going way too slow. Well, it's funny. If If I go too slow, people are complaining, and then if I go too fast, people are complaining. So I'm going slow because this is like when I watch people try to get into using a tool, right? Like if I gave you Ansible right now and I said use Ansible at work, and none of you and then I didn't tell you how to install it, and I didn't tell you how to set up an inventory for it, I can almost guarantee you to the person. There's a few people that like to hack away and figure stuff out, but almost to the person, you're just gonna be like, I'll keep using my bash shells. I can do bash shell scripting pretty good. I can loop over my stuff pretty good. I'm good. I don't need that Ansible stuff. And I'd say you're probably right. That's perfectly fine. I use bash for a lot of stuff still, but the two things that I find that, and this is why the first two labs are what they are, is people need to get something installed correctly, and then they need to get the inventories correct. Once you get those two things, everything else is a cinch, if you ask me. Everything else is just literally looking up the documentation until you do something for the first time, and then you go, oh, that's how I would do a URI module to hit that tool or that thing. I'm going to change it a little bit to hit my internal satellite. Oh, I got all the tasty data out. This is how I learned how to hit satellite and pull down all the servers that my system knew about. Because our content management database or configuration management database, whatever you want to call it, wasn't up to date. It was never up to date, but Red Hat always knows what Red Hat servers you have that are plugged into its system for updates. It always knows that. Because if it doesn't, you can't update them, right? So you know immediately that your stuff's out of compliance. But anyways, look at this. They've got some really good stuff in here. Here's a basic INI format. This is an ungrouped server. Don't do this. You can do it. You can have servers that are ungrouped. But put them into host groups because that's better. It's just going to be better. But thank you. Not for yeah. Control byte. This stuff is stuff that, you know, a lot of us did and learned in the trenches, and then we're trying to show it to people because these tools are good. Now, guys, there's also YAML format. So there's two ways to feed data into Ansible as a host. I think of everything, and I know this is going to sound weird, but this is the way I think of all the Ansible all the devices in my environment are kind of, when they go through any of my playbooks, I think of them as somebody sitting up at the top of like a Plinko machine, and they're dropping in a bunch of stuff, and then it's going like this. Have you guys ever seen a Plinko machine, and like the balls or the little things will go hit, and they will go down in the different places? This is how I think of Ansible. I don't care what comes out of the inventory, and I don't care what it is. I can filter it down to where it needs to go. Hey, Hack the Planet, how's it going? Thanks for the raid. Hopefully you guys were doing some cool stuff over there. Robodom gave you a shout out. That's awesome. See, my hands weren't even on the keyboard. That's awesome. On the Twitch side or on the YouTube side, I don't see anybody talking, so I'll just ignore you guys for a little bit. But here's some things to think about with our thing. What's the file formats that you can feed into Ansible? Why is this important to know? I can use a .ini format, or I can use a YAML format. Those are my two formats that Ansible is allowed to ingest. There are groups and all kinds of things that we can do, but we already have those for us. We have servers, control plane, and node 01. As we go through these labs, if you go do my labs on your own, you will find that they just, over time, more and more things keep popping up in here. No JSON or XML, no. Hack the Planet. However, it's funny, you get it out as JSON. Put it in, I feel like the straight to jail guy. Put it in, INI YAML. Come out, straight to jail. No, it can output as JSON, but it can't input it as JSON. All right. So anyways, we look at that and we say, okay, now we're going to verify that we can do connectivity with this root ping check. So, or we're going to save it to root ping check. So let's clear the screen real quick, and we're going to say Ansible. And we're going to say, with Ansible command, the host group that we want to hit. Real quick, let's cat root hosts. This inventory file can exist anywhere in all the world. I am going to do it as though I were with the machine. I like inventory files local or generated. Those are the two ways I like to do it. I don't like to just leave them in the default, which is etc Ansible hosts. Although in my home lab it is like that. If I cat etc Ansible hosts in my home lab, you will see this is my actual inventory for my home lab. This is it right here. These are actual servers running and things that we can manage, and I'm going to be setting this up to push out every morning over to our Discord, because we've had this lab up for a long time for people to use, but I haven't been keeping track of it like I do in my work system, so I decided I was going to be a little more disciplined, and I'm going to put it together where it's going to output how much capacity we're using, how much people use the system the day before, and whether any nodes are down or anything like that. Then also, some of you guys know, if you are part of our Discord and part of our professional Linux users group, I have access for you guys through a tool called Guacamole, where you can get in right through a browser into our home lab system. So if you guys have ever been in Guacamole, it's just a browser, and then you can connect to our home lab system, and then you're connected in here, and you can do whatever you want in there. Well, within the limits of, whatever labs we're doing or whatever, right? Okay, so enough about that for now. Let's keep going through the lab. We need to we're gonna build this command right here. So we're gonna say Ansible servers. Servers is the host group right there with control plane and node 01 in it. So there's our two things. And then I'm gonna say, well, I need to explicitly use that inventory file. And then I'm gonna give it a module of ping. This is not an ICMP ping, guys. This is a ping that is part of the modules of Ansible. It is not an ICMP ping. Not sure how Richard said, not sure how I found your channel, but subbed, and this is a phenomenal way of teaching and learning. Nice work. Yeah, Richard, I've been teaching college for 15 years, and I've been working with engineers and teaching them for the whole 20 years I've been doing stuff. So I've tried to find a way that hopefully helps people to think through things, because again, like, we can do labs, and I have all these labs out here, and we could just put our head down and we can see who's the fastest, right? Like, we're doing like one of those type racer races and just see who's the fastest. But then, like, we get all done and we didn't learn crap. And then, like, so I like to kind of ask you guys questions and make you think through this. So even if this is moving slow for you guys, because I know for some of you it is, go over here and answer these questions, and go on to the next lab too. Shoot, that doesn't hurt my feelings any. Keep working. But I just gotta kind of keep working on stuff so that people, I keep everybody with us. But let's say this ping module, this is not going to do an ICMP ping. So let's prove that to ourselves real quick. Let's run this. And there's some deprecation warnings. That's fine. But it said that for node 01, it was successful. And then it gave us some information back. And does anybody know that output right there? Anybody look at that and go, I know what that is. All right. How about down here for control plane? Success. Both of them were successful. And then you've got this output. This is a very common format that was mentioned earlier. This is a format that computer science is JSON. Yep, absolutely. This is JSON, guys. This is the way that Ansible reports stuff out to us. This can actually be made this works very well with like Tower and what's now called the Ansible automation platform to give us responses back that we can go do other things with. So this is useful. This is good. Okay. But we need to throw it into a file. So I'm just going to do that same command and then throw it into ping check. We're going to see the deprecation warnings. We don't care about those. But let's do this command again real quick. The original command. And right there it says just add a -vvv. This is going to blow up on your screen, guys. I apologize for nothing. This is going to blow up on your screen. And we're going to be as verbose as possible. I want Ansible to tell me all the things it's doing as it goes and connects to that machine. I want to verify. Remember I said this isn't an ICMP ping. This is an actual ping module. Well, let's see if that's true or if I lied to you. So I'm going to hit that. Blue's about to explode everywhere. You still see the original success, but there's more data coming back now. The invocation, it's all JSON still, right? Or JSON. People say it both ways. So let's go all the way up to the top. This is a lot of connection information. It's debugging the version of Ansible I'm using. So this is deep, right? It's going real deep. This is actually basically just an Ansible version right here. It tells me the version of Python I'm going to use. It's also going to tell me when it connects to the other node, the version of Python it finds on that node. So that's useful. It says, hey, the config file I'm using is etc ansible ansible.cfg as the config file. You can override that. You can put a local file in the directory with you called ansible.cfg, and you can override anything you want from the original config file. Or you cannot even use the config file. Or you can go change the configuration of Ansible to behave a bunch of different ways. You have all the power in the world here. But I'm just showing you guys, that's where Ansible config file is. So if I said later, hey guys, let's go change something in ansible.cfg, that's where it's at by default. But again, you can override it with local ones. And I've seen that done for logging purposes. Sometimes people will override for like a specific project and they just want to log everything in that project. That's fine. It said host decline parsing root hosts as it did not pass verify method. That's fine. Script declined parsing. I don't care. And then it said parsed root host inventory source with the ini plugin. So it couldn't pass it with any of these other methods, but it did work with the ini plugin, which makes sense. It's ini format, right? I'm not using YAML. I'm using ini. So we come down here and it says establish an SSH connection for user none. Well, we're the root user, so we're just using keys. It says exec ssh-c, and this is the exact command it did to go over and connect to that machine. It just did this to test that it could connect. Then it said establish SSH connection for user, and it goes over and it connects again. So it did that for node 01. So control plane it connected and just verified it could connect. It was a quick connection. It will do that, by the way, on all of your systems, and it will take a long time. You can use this to watch where your system's at if you're hitting hundreds of nodes, right? Then it comes down here and it says, okay, establish connection for the user, and it goes and it connects over there, and it's going to copy over a little Ansible temp information, and it pushes all that over, right? Does it for both of the nodes, node 01 and control plane. By the way, you might notice that, well, earlier it was control plane first and then node 01. Now it's node 01 and then control plane. Well, it's reporting out in the order it gets things back. So it's reporting, if you have 10 nodes, they will be run through in order, but they will then come back in whatever. It's kind of like I send them out serially, but they bounce back in whatever cluster F they want to, right? So control plane. Then here in a second, it's going to say, okay, well, what am I doing, right? It's done these little connections it needs to do, whatever backend testing it's doing. And then it's going to say attempting Python interpreter discovery. And it's going to go and it's going to see if it can find where the platform is and the version of the kernel and all these things. It's doing all this stuff. And then it goes and sees if it can execute platform Python or Python 3 and if it found it or not. So there's all this stuff going on right here, right? Again, way more information. I constantly tell you guys this, and I'm going to say it again. If I tossed Robodom the keys to my truck and told him to go get everybody drinks or something, and he got in my truck and started it, he would just drive off. I would not expect him to get out and walk around my truck for 5 minutes, making sure that like the lights were on and they were testing the oil and stuff like that. He wouldn't need to do all that. It started, right? That's how a lot of us drive our vehicles. If you ever read the manual, it says you're supposed to walk around like that. Yeah, as long as it's not stick shift, sure. I learned on stick shift. I drove stick shift for many years, but yeah, I guess younger guys probably don't anymore. But anyway, so the point is he would only troubleshoot if something broke. So again, when we look at this is just as an example to show you guys that things do not always have to be done, and we don't have to troubleshoot this low. You wouldn't do this. You definitely wouldn't show this to your junior engineers, and you definitely wouldn't show this if you like handed this process off to the network operations center or something. It's not because those people can't handle it. It's just, it's too much for them. So look, node 01, we're copying over with SFTP some package, which is right here. It's this Ansible. It's got this whole long name to it, but it's the ping.py module. All this other stuff is just added by Ansible. Don't worry about that stuff. Then it's going to go over there and it's going to execute it. So now it's going to say, hey, I'm going to run that over there. Also, it gave us all the information it found about those system commands it did. That's cool. Come down a little bit, you'll see it execute and it ran, and here's the data coming back from node 01. You'll see a similar one for node. But my point in showing you guys all this is, here you go. This is all the pieces of kind of what's happening, and then here's the output that you would normally see if you didn't care about all that stuff, right? Handlers ran last. Handlers always run if the tasks came back as changed. These tasks did not come back as changed, and I didn't have any handlers as defaults, so the handlers didn't have to run. There was only one task, in fact, and it was a pong. It was a ping, and it sent back a pong. So that's a lot to test, but we can verify all kinds of information about our system. So let's clear the screen up real quick, and it says that. So again, cat root hosts. It says that your team is going to be adding new servers to the environment, but they haven't been built yet. So this is that chicken and egg problem in engineering. Do I add the servers before they actually get built, or do I wait till the servers get built and then I add them? I'm a big fan of just adding them in the inventory file. I think it's perfectly fine. if they were defined in any of my processes where I pull it through satellite or something like that, then we would have them. And actually, I need to build a lab like that. We don't have satellite out here. Like, satellite is a paid-for product from Red Hat, but there's probably something similar where I can pull information. I could just make an API and we could pull generic names of servers and then generate our host files with that. That wouldn't be too difficult. But I might do that as part of the labs. Just have a Kubernetes node sitting there as a little open API, and then you could just pull, and then it would just generate a bunch. Yeah, I'm going to write that down for one of my new labs. Hold on. I have a bunch of, some of you guys have been around and seen that I have a ridiculous amount of notes in my environment, and I do not know where everything's at. Killer code of stuff, slurm commands. I don't know where my stuff is, guys, so sometimes, and by the way, if there's anything interesting there, we can talk about it another time, but I have nothing right now. There's our little prolog stuff. Here it is. Okay. And this will be an Ansible lab, and I need to, look, these are ones that I still have to write. Oh, dynamic inventory right there. Use Kubernetes to build an API, and we can hit it to pull information. Yeah, there we go. All right, so that's how I'm going to do it. I just thought about that when we were here. That's super easy to do. I just have to do it, right? It's like everything. Look at all these things I have backed up to do. Honestly, I haven't even looked at this page in a long time. Look at all these. Oh, gosh. Guys, trust me, nobody's more disappointed in me than myself. Hey, there's Jared. Oh man, Jared, you only got one more day with us, and then you're gonna be on bed rest for a while. So hopefully you're all right. Yeah, they can't handle it. Anyway, so we come over here, and I'm just gonna add stuff. So vi root hosts, and what are we gonna add? What are the servers that we're gonna add to our environment? Well, we're gonna add, so Shift G O, and I can just write them out. Test env, right? And the test environment we're just gonna make up some nodes. None of these nodes are real for what we're doing here. But I'm gonna hit Control C, Control Shift V if you're using a browser. And I've got this, I didn't want to type it out in case anybody was wondering. So now, I'm gonna clear the screen real quick. I'm gonna cat root hosts, and look at all that crap we just put in there. So, how do we read this? There are 1, 2, 3 host groups. I know at least one person more disappointed in me than you are yourself. All right, so then there's a fourth group, but this group is actually comprised of 2 other groups. So this group has children, or chirin, if we call them that, like how Chef used to talk. They are servers and test environment. So non-prod should be servers and test environment. Prod doesn't fall into non-prod because it's its own prod. Also, by the way, just for now, you should really not, I use this as an example, I think, of a dash. You really shouldn't put a dash in any of these. So if you are doing the lab with me, take that out. Will it work? Yes. Newer versions of Ansible may behave badly with it, though. This older version of Ansible probably isn't. Robodom, we wouldn't let you go anywhere if you wanted to. So if Robodom ever leaves, we would drag him back. So he's talking over on the Twitch side saying he wouldn't ever leave us, but we know he wouldn't leave us because we're abusive around here and we don't let people leave. Once you join, so the prolog is free, doesn't cost you anything. Hang out there all you want, but you're not allowed to leave. All right, yeah, never forget him, Suresh. All right, so what I want to show you guys this. So now we've got this like big inventory. Oh, and then we have these variables that are now assigned to these, and we could also set variables inside of their own little groups and then assign them up. So there's, by the way, we come over here back to the inventory. Look at all these other things we can do. We can do ranges. We can pass in different inventories from different places, multiple files. There's so much information, but we can also pass in variables like this at the INI format or in the YAML format. But I'm going to show you how to generate the YAML. I don't ever generate YAML format. That's too much of a mess for me. I'm a systems guy. I want everything flat and to the left. I know, it's a limitation. I'm not a programmer. I don't generate stuff like this. I generate this all day. Left-centered, right? But we can output like this if I need to feed that to somebody. So I'm going to show you guys this here in a second. So the goal of this then is, let's do Ansible inventory. There's a command. Hey, Rossberger, how's it going? Yeah, Rossberger. So I just, Yeah, I'm a famous dude now. So YouTube kind of blew up a little bit. And then it's interesting. If you guys ever look at YouTube metrics, they're up to the second like this. They're always going. And I'm a data analytics guy, so I love watching data. But all of their useful stuff trails like 5 days. So you're like, okay, I hit my 4K hours or 4,000 hours of people watching, but I can't do this for 5 more days to enable ads or whatever, you know? Yeah, and if you guys don't follow Rossberger, you really should. He's over on the Twitch side, but he plays games. I was watching him kill people earlier in video games and stuff, so it's kind of fun. I have a morbid fascination with Dead by Daylight. I don't know why. I've never played the game. I probably have about 10 games on Steam total, and Dead by Daylight isn't one of them. But I love watching. I probably, if I had to guess, have like 5,000 to 6,000 hours of watching people play that game. But I think that comes from being in the infantry when I was younger, right? I was in infantry, deployed into Iraq in 2003, took the country over. Like, you know, that leaves you a little messed up. Adam said, got a bachelor's in cybersecurity, but have no job experience in IT. Been using Linux at home for 10 years, though. Don't know what kind of job to shoot for. Adam, I will tell you one of the cool things about Linux. So Adam's asking a little bit about Linux and where to go. Adam, I would tell you, like, my favorite thing about Linux is it is like the base of engineering for all these other things you might want to do. So you could say, hey, I use Linux and I feel good with Linux. Have it on your resume because people look for that. But then also you can use Kali Linux to build your own little home lab and do some projects and stuff. You can do some of our stuff like where I'm watching Ranger Cam down here. There's Ranger. Look at him, all tired. And then we're also monitoring how my lab servers are doing. And this kind of stuff, we have all these labs up in our Discord, and you guys can actually build these. You might say, Scott, there's no way I can build that out. And I would say, yes, you can actually build that out in Killer Coda in under an hour. Each one of these pieces right here. It might not be as colorful as this by the end, but it will have the same data for your servers. So you have all that. You won't be able to get Ranger Cam up in that time. But my point in saying all that is find something that's interesting to you, right? Like, so you've got a bachelor's in cybersecurity. You probably enjoy doing cybersecurity stuff in some way. I would get, one-page resume together, start to figure out, what your strengths are. And then if you're looking for work, tailor your one-page resume down to each of the different people you send it to. And I only keep one version of it, but I will change it for each person that I send it to. So if an organization has, they want me to be a little more Linux heavy, I'll do that. They want me to be more on the security side, then I'll put that. But I always lead with all my... Actually, do you guys want to see? I will take an aside if you guys want to see my resume. I showed my students earlier my real resume, but I will show you guys my mock resume. Right? I don't mind being doxxed online, but I won't dox myself 100%. Let's go to Prolog. I won't 100% dox myself. I'll only mostly dox myself. So I have a het version of my resume. Where's that? I don't care if you guys know who I am either, because I'm a real person. I'm on Twitch and I'm on. Hold on, where's this at? It's het resume. Where's het at? Here he is. Het resume short generic. Right. So that was my college students thing. This was that's for students earlier. Get that out of the way. Don't save. All right. So this is my het Tanis one. If people care about this stuff. Let me get rid of this. All right. So I lead with, I'm only showing this because, maybe some people care. I lead with what I do, and I have my information up here with different emails. And my GitHub's the same, though. You can go find me on GitHub. You guys can also find me on GitHub and Twitch. And YouTube, I don't have any of the commands set up. But my industry certifications that I have that I think matter in the order that I think they matter for whatever job. So if it's a security job I'm going for, I'm a CISSP and a CCSP. Those are two kind of highly sought after security certifications in the industry. If I'm talking about doing Kubernetes, I would move those two up front, which is my certified Kubernetes administrator and certified Kubernetes application developer. My Terraform associate actually isn't current anymore. I actually let both of these lapse because I didn't care about them. So technically, these go down in my older certifications now. But they go still before any of my Army stuff. So actually, these guys go over here, right? And then this would be, it expired in 2004, or 2024. Terraform didn't exist back then. And Vault was also 2024. right? So if I was cleaning this up right now, these are my certs. These are the things that I have and things that might matter. U.S. Army Honorable Discharge, DD-214 available, and then EIB and CIB, which is kind of like this niche little flex that I don't expect most people to understand. But people that means something to, that means a lot to. And then languages that I feel pretty proficient in. Like if you put me down at a command line, I could do things in them, right? I could pull data, I could push data with these. I feel pretty good about all these. Recent conference presentations are, this one's a little dated now, but a few years back I did that K8s meetup with 70 people, and I talked about Vault and how I used Vault to communicate up with AWS, and I've shown that to you guys before on stream here. Oh yeah, Jared's known me 30. Is it exactly 30? It's almost exactly 30 now, isn't it? Yeah, Jared and I met in 7th grade. In case anybody's wondering, Jared over on the YouTube side. Also, Jared's in our Discord, and he comes and talks a lot about, he's a Google Analytics guy. So he's, I think he's technically called like a data architect wherever he's at, but he's a system, he pulls down data. He takes all the tasty data and verifies that they're good before he gives them to other people. So that's what he does. He comes and does talks with us in our Discord every now and then. So if anybody's interested in that, he comes and does that as well as other people. And then different stuff that I've done. And I think I left Best Western on there just because I got laid off due to COVID. So I left Best Western on there because there's a funny joke with my friends where when I told my boss I was going to leave AAA and go to Best Western, he told me, Best Western? I'd sleep in my truck before I slept in a Best Western. So kind of a whole joke there. He makes AI works and stuff. Suresh, you can ask him. I think Jared mostly does like Google Tag Manager and Google Ads stuff. So that's that. By the way, that's Suresh on the YouTube side, not Suresh on the Twitch side. So okay. So look. So how many different file formats can we output to? I haven't even shown you guys this. So we've got this file. Let's do Ansible inventory, and then we can say against the inventory of root hosts and just list them all. Just list them all for me. And I'm not going to tell you any specific way, but this system that can only take in INI and YAML wants to output in what? Who knows what that is? Somebody said this earlier, and obviously you guys have. That's a very common data output right there, right? Oh, you're on both sides, Suresh? Well, you're the real champion then because you're pumping my numbers on both sides. Best Western. This is JSON, right? Or JSON, whatever you want to call it, right? And here's all of our systems, and there's lists, and there's also key value pairs. So there's all these pieces of data that you can get inside of a JSON format, right? But that's a real nice output. We also can just press up here and change this list to graph. This is going to be a much more compressed output. I think this would be good, excuse me, if you had to like send this to a project manager or somebody that was non-technical, and they just were like, hey, can you give me some info for the slide deck or whatever? I want to tell people the projects you've been doing and how you've been doing stuff. That's really cool for them because that's super compressed, doesn't really give any data. And I mean, in my mind, that's pretty light on data, but that would be very hard to parse for me because I'm not some great regex guy. I can do regex to get out of a paper bag, but that's annoying, right? But what about if I wanted to list it as, I can list, and then I can change the output to -y. That's not a yes, that's YAML. And I can get it in the same output that I could feed it into another system. That starts to be interesting. What if somebody has a requirement in some world where they need to get stuff in as YAML so that they can feed it up to their, let's say maybe in the future Ansible automation platform always accepts in YAML, and you got all your stuff in INI, you can convert them. It's very useful to know how your tools work to move data from one way of looking at it to another, right? So that's kind of good. Nick, I'm a tank. By the way, Nick, if you go in our Discord and you see pictures of me, those are not real pictures. Everything in there, hopefully you're talking about my subs and stuff, but yeah, if you're talking about like the pictures of me that are AI generated that the guys are making, those are not me. Those are absolute ridiculous affronts to God, if we're being honest here. They are just, the guys have been just messing around with AI and stuff, so it's, oh no, my muscles are actually bigger than that, Suresh. No, I'm just kidding. But I am a wrestler, so there's a lot of info in there. Okay, last Ray Digit said, I maintain all the hosts in my home lab in a Postgres database, and then I have a Python script to write the inventory file when I write an Ansible playbook. That's perfect, last rated. That's actually, that might be something I do, because generating an inventory is super useful. And there's also ways to generate facts, which are super useful as well. But they're kind of almost enough in a small enough case where I haven't put them into these labs, because these labs are like me painting with a wide brush. Like, I think most of you could do this. People like Lacerate obviously does this stuff, and some of you guys are doing it. I know Suresh did every one of these in his home lab. And the thing is, you could be ready to go do this professionally in the confines of all the things that we kind of do in these labs, if you understand the systems administration stuff too. So it's kind of like you have to understand, like, what are we trying to do in the systems world? We're trying to keep things running. We're trying to keep them secure. We're trying to keep the management happy by pulling data out. And then we use tools to do those things, right? So, all right. Does this output in... it never does INI. It'll do YAML. It'll do this graph stuff, which, again, not great. And JSON. Those are the only three ways I know how to output. So I don't know how to get it back out in INI if I feed it in INI. There might be a way. Tag the host so that I'm updating apt-based hosts, and I just pull those, skip the windows, or non-apt. Yeah, that's actually awesome, Lacerated. That's a really good way to do it. I like it. I like it. Have you guys seen... so I don't know if some of you guys have seen some of my more complex stuff, but I have stuff that sets values. So in my home lab, I'll show you guys some stuff real quick. We won't go over this right now, but... we can't reboot these labs in this environment, or I would do this. Actually, maybe I could just make one of these that did this. Patching. So in my patching playbook, I have roles, and then I have my site. So let's go look at our site. And our site does, for right now, it does patch and reboot. I don't do my app validation, and then I do a final validation. So let's CD down into roles and reboot. So reboot, if we CD down into tasks, has a main.yaml, and that forces us over into reboot, and then we go into reboot servers, and we do this simple little diddle. Simplest little thing ever. We start off this playbook as we drop into this role. We set every server right here to kernel reboot needed false. So we set that false. So every server that's still in the playbook, everything that's into Ansible, Ansible play hosts, not Ansible play hosts all, because that's what started. All the ones that are still around are Ansible play hosts, right? Kernel reboot needed false. We set it to false across the board. So do not run unless this is set to true. By the way, if we didn't set it to false, it still wouldn't run down here, but it would just break on the playbook, but that's fine. Then we get down here, check the kernel version of the kernel, and we check grubby --default -kernel. That's only going to work. Grubby only works on your Red Hat systems typically, or it's by default on your Red Hat systems. And then I register grubby check out of there, right? Then I come down here and I say kernel reboot needed is set to true if the Ansible kernel, which is this, this is a super simple check. If this kernel does not match up across this kernel right here, meaning this kernel is not in this kernel, that's a Python-esque check, right? That's a Python way of saying if it's not in there, then I set kernel reboot needed to true, because in my patching window, this reboot is needed if I want to go to a new version of the kernel, and I have to do it in my reboot window. Then I show the fact because I want to see it, and then I reboot the system. But I only reboot the system if this thing tested to true. Otherwise, I would skip over it on the play. So this is a way. I also have another way of doing it with reboot needs -restart with a -y, and then I just give the information of yes or no. Gives you like a true or a false, and I do that. Suresh, you need to typically, in a Linux system, in the enterprise nowadays, you probably have to upgrade the kernel every 3 months or so. There are companies that accept a different, and it's what we call a risk appetite and a security posture, and there are some companies that will keep their systems longer. Is the kernel upgrade, is it like Windows OS upgrade from what? No, Suresh, there are patch So you've got major, minor, and patch versions of a kernel, and they are mostly patch versions, but sometimes they are actual upgrade. They are sometimes minor patches. You'll never do a major upgrade patch on a kernel right currently. There's tools that'll do it, but for the most part, no, you stay on there. So it's more like Windows patch. So you can think of it like that. You can think of it as it tends to be security, bug fixes, and errata. Those are the three main ones. Security, bug fix, and errata. Those are the main three reasons why things get patched in the systems world. Okay. So look, we dumped all this stuff out. We got it as all these different outputs. We asked ourselves over here, how many different file formats can we output into? Why might we want to output to different formats? Well, because we have different audiences. So we need to do that. So there you go. Okay, so let's clear this up real quick. And then I think I've got some questions here. So can you output the inventory in 3 different formats? Yeah, I can do list, which will be JSON. I can do graph, which will be this stuff. And then I can do YAML, which will be in a YAML format. And that graph, somebody help me out here. Is that graph compatible with, what's the name of that graphing tool? Have you guys ever seen, there's a graphing thing that, oh, what is that called? Somebody help me out here. There's a name for it. I know me and Pessa used to use it. And we would take all of our Terraform and run it, and it would build us graphs. There's a name for it, but I don't really use it much in the systems world. I know some software guys like it. No, not Mermaid. That's good. Neograph. I don't think it's Neograph either. What happened here? Oh yeah, Jared's right. I am a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. In fact, Jared, I'm teaching tomorrow and the day after, because we were doing this thing today where we were doing half guard, and I showed this like way that I do this Kimura, and I spin around and roll people, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we want to see that tomorrow." And I was like, "All right." So I use it for code, but I don't remember the name. Yeah, I'll find it later. I'll post it down in the Discord when I find it. I always try to. I remember stuff after stream or whatever, but I think this might work in that format. Looking at that, and that might be useful then to make like a little graph if somebody wanted. Hold on. Graphing in what is that thing called? Does somebody have that? It probably wouldn't be one of the first ones. I don't think I searched for it very well. Oh, we used to use it for Terraform. Does anybody have it? Hold on, I just want to see if somebody has it. Not Brainboard. Not Terraform. It looks like this blast radius, but it's not that. Not Rover. It's similar to diagram codes, but it's not that. Not Cloud Discovery. Not Brainboard. Nope. Does anybody say it down here? Nope. So Terraform Graph will output. Oh, jeez. Medium's is annoying nowadays. All right. Oh, did I just close? Oh, damn it. I did just close that whole thing out, didn't I? Oh, it is GraphViz. Is that right? Hold on. It is GraphViz. That's exactly it. Yep. So I thought that somebody has it. Like somebody runs GraphViz though, don't they? GraphViz. Somebody just have it online somewhere. Because sometimes I think some of them have it where you can just run it. Where's that at? Like somebody will just have an editor here. I'm just curious if it'll run it. It might not. This might not be their right format. Yeah. It's invalid. Okay, so it wasn't GraphViz, but I think it was GraphViz that we were using. And then we were using it internally, and we just made it. So can you assign variables to the servers in your inventory? You guys saw how to do that, right? You just give them key value pairs in YAML format, so it's something equals something, and it's fine. That works. No, it wasn't dot, Adam. It was GraphViz. That was the right one I was thinking. Okay, so now this next one. So I'm just going to pull this up, go back to Killer Coda. Whoops. Go pull up Killer Coda for me as a user, which for you guys will just be Het Tanis. You can also do a labs on the Twitch side. And then you can also, for you guys on the YouTube side, I think that's a little bit long of a chat message. Yeah. There you go. But there it is. There's me and also Fisherman. Fisherman's labs are really good, by the way, guys. He does, his stuff is like sysadmin type stuff and also the LLM type stuff. So getting you in there. All right. So now, after we do the install of Ansible, and after we get our inventory looking good for our environment, the next two things that I want you guys to do, yeah, they're just as mean as his bot. The next two things I want you guys to do is practice. So what we do in the labs here is we practice just running ad hoc commands. Ad hoc commands are not necessarily the way that we would do this in the like out in. I mean, it's we're calling each individual piece and like looking at it and going, okay, that makes sense. And I always use this example, and I think this makes sense to me, but hopefully it makes sense to everybody else. If I went to a Mexican restaurant, right? There's Mexican restaurants in Phoenix. It's very prevalent out here. So we go to like a Mexican restaurant. I love the food. And I say, I want a taco, and I want a burrito. And they look at me and they look at their menu and they look at me and they look at their menu and they go, you know, you could have just ordered a number 7, right? And I go, yeah, I see that. But I want a taco, and a burrito. And they're like, that's a number 7. Well, that might be fine for me to do. They'd probably just give it to me. But what if I showed up with like 20 of my friends over lunch and I was like, I want a taco, and a burrito. And like the next guy's like, I want a taco, and it would be onerous. It would be too much work for one person, right? That's insanity. So what we would do instead is we would just say like, I want a 7, I want a 5, I want a whatever, and it would be quick. Well, that's kind of like our playbooks. And when we run our ad hoc mode, we're calling each individual piece, but we're looking at how it works. So hopefully that kind of makes sense why I start you off with this instead of just dropping you into playbooks. Playbooks are the way we do things. We run tasks in our playbooks. We run handlers. We report things out. We store variables in a little sack as we go along. Ansible's like walking along with a little sack, and it's got all the variables in it, and we can do all kinds of things. But before we do any of that, we look at all the pieces, right? We're still just doing the pieces. So this one says, verify your host file and test your ad hoc commands. Verify the server's uptime. Verify the OS type of the servers. And then verify the date and the time of the servers. Okay? Yeah, he has. Yeah, you should Suresh, you should definitely do fisherman stuff. Yeah, his are much more like mine. Walk you through everything. His are much more. I almost want to say combative with you. They make you think as though you were sysadmin and you're getting tickets coming in and you're trying to figure stuff out. So there's that kind of stuff. Wimmery, thanks for the follow. Hopefully this stuff's useful to you. We are running through our Ansible labs and we are asking ourselves questions in a Socratic manner. Can I do this and can I do that? So thanks for the follow. Hopefully this stuff's useful. That's what we're doing. All right. So I said create a root version with the Ansible facts and create a root date with the Ansible facts of the current date. So I capped the file. I did that. And I'm just going to check all the servers uptime. I'm going to run a command that says, here's what the command says. It says Ansible. And it calls the server's host group right there from the inventory file that I want to choose, root hosts. And I give the shell module. The shell module is the module that will go and execute things, just launch them off into the server. And the argument I gave was uptime. And then the uptime came back about the server. So if we just clear real quick and I say, could we modify this command to not do uptime, but rather maybe show the last 5 entries of Etsy Pass WD? Could I do the last 5 entries of Etsy Pass WD right here for both servers? Does anybody think you could do that? Just the last 5. I want to see who the last 5 users that were added to the system were. Look at that. Just launches off, gives me back that these are... Oh, look, I immediately noticed something between these two nodes. Can anybody tell me what I noticed immediately between node 01 and control plane right here? Maybe I was testing that my nodes were built the exact same way. If you saw both of these, do you think they've went through the same build process? If you saw that those outputs from 2 different nodes with 2 different Etsy password outputs, would you think those are the same? They were built the same way, or no? I'm looking for an answer. Okay, well, I'll answer it myself then. No, what the hell? Those are 2 completely different nodes. I want to know what happened there, right? So I might go look at packages that were installed. I might look at the build stuff. I might come here. I might look at, this is one of my favorite ones. I've shown you guys this before. I might cat proc cmd line, command line, and see what these nodes are showing me. And I say, okay, they were probably built pretty similar, but they definitely have some differences in the way that packages were added to them and the users that are on the box. So that's something for me to watch out for. So that's you might look at that and go, well, hold on a minute, Scott. With that tool right there, I can do anything I want to on servers, can't I? I'd say, yeah, you really could. You're basically going in a restaurant and ordering a number 1 all the time, or a taco, and a burrito. You're never getting to where you can just call up and order 7 number 7s and get them all done. But yeah, you could do just this, and you would probably be a pretty decent sysadmin just doing this command all over Linux. Yep. Probably push files. I use this on servers sometimes, like I gotta fix like a bad route or something. Yeah. You could get away with a lot with this. This is very similar in my mind to when I would run like bash loops over lists of servers to execute commands, connect to things, execute. This is very, very powerful. But it's not where we stop. There's so much more that we can do with Ansible that we want to get into. So this, by the way, this is going to be part of a series. I'm going to go through all the labs again, but we're doing the questions over here to make sure that we understand kind of what's going on. All right, so we did that. The next one is we're going to run we're going to run just the normal setup command. And this command is going to dump so much information to the screen. But it's valuable for us to look at. This is alphabetical, by the way, as far as the keys go on the left. So Ansible user, Ansible virtualization, and then some other information. But as you look up through here, you're going to notice that they are alphabetical order going backwards. Here's Ansible proc command line. It gives me information about the boot image. So I could look up just Ansible proc command line and get information about how the system was booted. I can come up here and I can start look at disks and different system information, all the mounts that are currently mounted, the total memory of the system. That's the total memory of the box. And just come up here and look through all of this. So there's a lot of interesting, here's all the interfaces as though I were to do an if config or an IP adder on the box, right? There's a lot of information here. I don't have a host NQN, but I do have an Ansible host name. Ansible host name is very useful. I have an Ansible fully qualified domain name if I had a fully qualified domain name here. All we are using is localhost because we don't, in our system here, we don't necessarily worry about DNS, but we connect. Okay. All kinds of information, all kinds of good stuff. But earlier when I was talking, I mentioned that there's a filter command for this setup. So instead of just showing us everything, we can filter down to just the things we want to see. And the filter is an FN match type. So it's like something with an asterisk at the end will find all of the examples of it. So let's try that real quick. We're going to do Ansible with the setup, and then we're going to filter down to just the distribution. So Ansible _ distribution. And it will tell us that the Ansible distribution of this box, of these servers, is Ubuntu. So watch this real quick. I'm going to go grab that. And I'm going to go to my home lab. And I'm going to say that same command. Against, but I don't need the root host because I do everything out of my general thing. And I'm not going to use servers. I'm going to use a special keyword for all. All will hit all the servers. This is probably going to error a lot too, but I'm going to know what the Ansible distribution is of all the servers that I can reach in my home lab right now. Watch right here. Well, it takes a second because this box is tired. Box is always tired. This box is an asshole. All right, there's nodes that I can't get to because I didn't take them out of my inventory. InfluxDB is CentOS. Some of the boxes are on Ubuntu. I have other boxes apparently that aren't. That's like the worst inventory ever. This is why I generate them at work. At home, I don't generate them. because I'm lazy. But all these boxes are Ubuntu, CentOS. CentOS is dying, but it still exists. Ubuntu. You can't get patching for CentOS anymore though. But anyway, so those are all my nodes. And I could go clean out those nodes so they don't show up anymore, but it's not really that big of a deal. Plus, it shows you that Ansible will go rolling along until it's completed its task and given you all the nodes that you asked for, right? Again, doing things at the command line like this is okay, but this is not nearly as powerful as if I were to do it in a playbook and then all the variables come with me and I can report the variables out later and I can feed them out in different formats for management and that kind of stuff. So there's all kinds of stuff that we can do there. Okay, now I said report that out to a file because I want the version in a file. And then now one of my favorite things to show you guys is there's all kinds of other information. There's always more information, guys, right? That's the thing about systems. There's always more information. In fact, there's so much information that we probably never get through all of it, right? But I don't want to see all of the information. I don't care about it. I want some very small little piece of the information for whatever I'm using it for. So what if the servers could tell us all of the date and time information that they knew? So we're going to use that setup again, but we're going to filter down by Ansible date underscore date underscore time. And look at this little guy. This is one of my favorite things because this is so useful to me where I want to stamp exactly when something happened in a Jinja template, or I want to put this directly to a file. I can call Ansible underscore date underscore time dot ISO 8601 basic short. This is my favorite one to stamp to a file because it's unique, but it doesn't have any of these special characters that are super annoying for file formats and file systems. For you guys that do, if you do a lot of API calls and stuff, and if you do a lot of parsing of information, ISO 8601 is your friend. In fact, some of you, like I know Robodom's a front-end guy, he's seen a lot of this. There's a lot of logging that comes out in this format as well. But the ISO 8601 is a tremendously useful format to understand. So much so that I normally show it to you guys. There's an ISO 8601 format Wikipedia, right? Maybe go check out their Wikipedia page, and there's some tasty information there about this format and how it reads. And you will see this for your whole career because APIs aren't going anywhere, guys. APIs are definitely not going anywhere. They're the standard. They've been the standard for a long time, even if your organization doesn't use them yet. I like using APIs because then people don't have to keep asking me questions. They can just query the API and get the information about my servers, which is one of the reasons why with Satellite I always give people read-only info. And I'll just say, oh, okay, here, and by the way, this is how I query it. And I'll show them. I'll lead them all the way over there and put their head down and tell that horse to drink. Can't make them drink, but you can show them, right? Same thing here, right? This is all the information. This is all the tasty data that we might need. I always call I always talk about data as being tasty because it's salient. It's important data points to what we're doing, right? And salient for some reason always sounded like savory to me. I know, probably my speech impediment. But anyway, so look at all that info. Look at all that stuff that I could know about the system. Man, there's a lot, right? But we only need what we need, and then we put the other stuff away and don't think about it. I tell you guys this all the time, right? Just get what you need and get out. So we can do that. We'll throw that out to a file. So throw it all in there and we're good. And then the lab says, look at you learning Ansible. You solved this challenge. But the questions over here say, how does ad hoc mode differ from playbook mode? And why might you want to know this? So think about that. What ad hoc commands did you do in this lab? Well, you can just type history and see all that. Okay. What is useful? What useful information is shown by setup? It's all the info. It's probably some of the most useful info around. But I'm going to show you in later labs. If you want, you can stamp other info that's useful to you into your servers, and then your servers will always come running up and give that information to Ansible when asked. So you put it down in the right location, and when Ansible comes to a server, if there's data down in that location in the correct .fact format, it will take that data, right? And even it can execute it and run and get data. It will take that data and put it in its little sack, and Ansible will then do decisions based on the data that your servers bring to it. And this is really useful. This is something We do it in this lab, I want to say in like lab 8 or something, where we go and we stamp a bunch of information to the servers, and then we pull it back and we group the servers by information that they brought to us. Back to that example of a Plinko machine where you just pour all the servers in the top, and then they go choose which path they're going to go down through based on information that they knew about themselves. It's really, I can't emphasize how important that is for like the enterprise stuff I do. I tell you guys sometimes, like, this is the one thing that I really want you to know. I can tell you that one part where I like format servers into different groups, it changed the way that I did administration, right? So, all right, what useful information is shown by setup? I talked about that. And then what is the ISO 8601 timestamp? Why might you want to know this? It's pretty much the standard. Like, you're going to run into that literally everywhere. If I was like, hey, Robodom, send me over the logs for your web server for the last couple hours, it would probably be timestamped in that format. Some things are not. There's things that aren't timestamped in that. If I go to Grafana in the home lab here, and then I go to... Let's see. Not everything. Not everything's like that. Let's go look at our logs and apps. These are not quite ISO 8601. Oh, but that's... Does everybody know what that is? What's that? Anybody know what that time zone is? It's a little different. That time zone's a little different. But, yeah, this is not quite in that format, but it's there. What is that, guys? Is that epoch? Yeah, Unix time. Epoch time. Does everybody know where epoch time started? January 1st, 1970, 12 a.m. Those are all the seconds since then, right? They're running forward. They're always running. So, okay. We don't need to look at that right now, though. All right, so we come back. January 1st, 1970. Yep, 12 a.m. Epoch time. Exactly. It's exactly right over on the YouTube side. Adam got it. So, it's good. Missed by 10. Yeah, I missed it by 11. I was born in 81. All right, so we're going to do some more ad hoc commands. This is another lab. Oh, can you connect all servers and get the uptime? We did that, right? We just hit that same command with uptime. Can you connect all servers and get all their facts? Setup. Can you connect to all the servers and only show time facts? We did that. Yep. Now we're on this next ad hoc command. So make that a little bigger for you guys. I'm going to link this over to you guys on the YouTube side and then on the Twitch side. Also on Twitch side, Turtlebeard, thanks for the follow. Killer Coda is not my platform. I just write a bunch of labs out there. I do have my own platform that people can get into, and that is right here. That is also, wait, did I close that? No, it's right here. I have my own Apache Guacamole server that people can connect into and get into, right, into our lab environment and stuff. But for that, people had to get down into Discord, and then it's in the sandbox. It tells you how to get in there. I'm going to make that much more visible here. I'm going to try to do it by the end of this week. And then people that are down in the Discord, they're going to get an update daily of how much capacity we have. And then also, I'm going to have them be able to get in there and do stuff. And what I'm going to do, my plan with that was always just wipe the servers every night. But we'll figure it out. I'll do an update on the servers, like how much usage they had and everything, and then send that out to everybody and how to connect, and then I'll wipe them. I think that'll be maybe my plan. I think that would be fun. And also, I got to figure out access. I'm eventually going to give much more granular access, but at first I may just have a couple ways of logging in. You guys got to remember, I track everything, so I can track IPs and ban people if I have to, but I really don't want to do that. We're a professional group, right? Like, anybody that makes it into our Linux group for more than a few minutes, well, I guess once they start seeing all those AI images of me, they'd know that this isn't a professional group. But the point is, I try to keep it somewhat professional, even though if you go down the meme channel, I am the one dropping the most memes in there. But it's only because I'm trying to prime the pump, because I'm trying to get you guys to feed me memes, and then I don't have to go harvest my own memes anymore. That's kind of my goal on the internet. But anyways, all right, let's look at this one. This one says verify your root host file. So cat root hosts. This is our typical stuff. And then verify. We're going to cat root config file.cfg, and that's just some file in our network. That's just some file out there. Yeah, Turtlebeard, you're always welcome. Pretty much anybody watching me and standing here for more than a couple minutes. Anybody that can stand me for more than a few minutes can probably stand our Discord. By the way, our stated goal is to take you guys from doing this stuff as amateurs, because some of you just do this for fun, and show you how to be pros if you want to. I have, like I've told you guys, I have a whole bunch of degrees and stuff, and I've been teaching this stuff forever, but I learned almost all my Linux in the wild. My degrees have not, I don't think, helped me get jobs, because well, maybe they did, right? Because probably as a differentiator. But in the big scheme of things, I feel like a lot of the stuff, when I get asked to do things, I just have to get my hands on it, right? And I was telling you guys the other day, I got passed over on a NASA project. They were like, we don't think that guy's senior. And I'm like, fuck, all right, I guess not. I don't know what else I could have done, but they were like, yeah, we're going to pass on him. And I said, all right, fair enough. You know, maybe one of you will be watching my YouTube one day to figure out how to do something. That'd be funny. But anyways, but I won't be bitter. Won't be bitter. Okay, all right, I'm just kidding. All right, I'm mostly just kidding. I'm a little salty about it, but not that much. I told the wife we're going to be fine. All right, so check this out. We have all these different commands. Robodom, the ultimate revenge is just being successful. Yeah, I don't worry about all the people that have fallen by the wayside over the years, Robodom. Yeah, I never worry about them. Been in the industry for years, but I'm desperately trying to respark Linux love into deep in corporate life. Turtlebeard, they have been trying to make me a manager for 20 years. I constantly push back on being a manager. So, yeah, Linux, you got to get your hands on it. I think Killer Coda is one of the best places on the web. Even if you don't like my Killer Coda labs, there are literally hundreds of other labs being made. Oh, I don't want that. Hold on. I just want to go to Killer Coda. There's hundreds of labs being made by other people, and they're all really good. I think most of the labs are pretty solid. You could just go spend 20 minutes every morning in some of these and go pick up how to do Red Panda. I don't even know what Red Panda is. Linkerd. I know what Linkerd is. You want to get good at Vim, because maybe you're terrible at Vim. This guy put together at least 6 things to get you better at Vim, right? Also go to Vim Tutor. If you guys don't use Vim Tutor, that's a good one. I've been telling people to use Vim Tutor for like years, and I've literally never gone through it. Do you guys know that? I've been telling people to use Vim Tutor forever to learn Vim. Never used it. Always just kind of picked up my stuff in the wild and never used it. Maybe that would be a fun one to go through. Guy who's been doing stuff forever goes through Vim Tutor. Yeah, to learn all the different keystrokes that I don't know to get better. But, well, there's other things to that. But let's go into our commands. We've got a file for our inventory that we've seen that every time. Now we've got this new file. This new file we're just going to push around and mess with. Just going to play with this file. So we're going to generate a directory on a machine. And look at how simple that is. Ansible servers -i root hosts. We're going to give the module is going to be file. And the arguments are going to be a path to the path that I want to make the directory in. And the state, if I don't want it to be a file, which it will default to file, I have to say state equals directory. Now, real quick, you might look at this and go, all right, Scott, well, what other things could the state be? And I say, that's actually really smart. What if I run this again real quick? Let's run it twice because it's useful to run things twice. The first time it had to make the file. The second time it did not have to make the file because the file was already there, the directory, as it were. But the question was, in the command, there are these arguments. There's a path and a state directory. How would I know the other things that state could be besides directory? Anybody want to take a guess? There's 2 ways that I can think of. One is if you're locked in the command line, and the other one is the way that I prefer to do it. So I'll show you both real quick. So let's just hit Control-C on that. The 2 ways you can do it are like this. If you're locked in and you don't have a web browser to go to, you can do Ansible doc-s file, because that's the module we're using. And then I go look for state. So this is alphabetical. I just go down to state. And it said right here, can be absent, it will be deleted. It can be it gives us all the options here anyways. I don't really like this way of doing it. But these are all the options in here. You just got to read them. It's absent, present, Yeah, shit, that's all they're going to give you. It can be absent, present, directory, and they give you them here. Absent, path, directory. This is the way I like to do it. Ansible, module, file, or file module. Click on it. Go back to 2.9. You need an L on labs. That would be funny if... abs command has to be labs, by the way. Dev Suthar said, hello, can you make a video on the firewall for beginners, how to set it up on Windows plus Linux? Dev, I don't really do anything on Windows if I can avoid it, but I do have some stuff on Linux firewalls and the theory behind them. So I could point you to some of that stuff, Dev. But I don't strictly speaking do Windows. You might say, but you're in Windows. Yeah, but I don't really do it professionally. Look right here. So I can look down here, and here's information for me, and this is useful. But if I need to know exactly the options, I come up a little bit. I go to state, and here's my choices. Absent, directory. There's the default of file, hard, link, and touch. Those are all the options that I can do. But the default is right there. So if I didn't give that it was going to be a directory, it would have made a file for that. And that wasn't what I wanted. So here's the modules 2.9. Also, anybody that needs me to do anything, and like the question there was, could I do firewall stuff? Do me a favor if you guys would ask me that down in Discord. You'll find that I have like a rolling 3 or 4 seconds of memory, and I will forget things. So if you ask me down in Discord, it's a better way to ask me stuff. So, okay. So anyway, so let's get rid of that. I just want to show you guys how I look things up. You can also do it here. I'm not a big fan of that. So we made the file, and then we ran it again, and we made the directory, and we could run that all day. This is actually what they call idempotency. It's already there. It's like I can't pull over any further. I already have a directory. So Ansible will not make another directory, and it'll give you information about the directory. But what if I rerun this command and I give a new argument called mode, because I see right there that I can set the mode to 0755 or 0750, because I don't want anybody to be able to get in there, only the root owner. By the way, you might notice a bunch of these were just defaults because I didn't pick those. I didn't pick any of that stuff. It just made that. But now I'm going to change it. And I say I want mode to be 0750. It'll change that for me. Then if I run it again, it doesn't have to change it for me. Then here's the trick. If I take that away, does it try to change it back to the old way, or does it leave it the default? By the way, I'm being sneaky because here's the thing. There's this old saying in engineering, one test is worth 1,000 expert opinions. We could sit here and argue all day, but if I just run it, we'll see that it leaves it alone. It doesn't go changing it back. So if you don't explicitly give a mode, it'll stay on the mode that's there, or when you're first building it, it will give a default mode, but it will not change it back to that default mode. And that's a good thing to understand. If you're systems engineer and you need to know the behavior of how a deployment thing that you're going to write is going to work, there you go. You go test it. Test it on one of your lower environments. Test it here, right? All right, so we've done that. Let's copy now. We're going to do the copy module, and we're going to copy over this root config file that we had into destination opt deployment on both servers. Whoops. So we're going to run that. State directory, good. Opt deployment, run that. And it wrote it the first time. But then we're going to run it again. And it's not going to have to change anything. But in this first one, I got both a checksum here and an MD5 sum of this file. Where's it at? This opt deployment config file. So, how could I verify, if I just ls in the directory I'm in, how could I verify that this config file and that config file are the same? Anybody think about that? How would I verify that these two are the same? That nothing's changed. So I can do a check config or checksum. Well, checksum's not one of the values though. We did an MD5 sum against root deployment. Oh, config, sorry. And then that matches to the MD5 sum up here. So MD5 sum is 3596551 3596551. There you go. And then the MD5 sum, the SHA-1 sum, which is not still around anymore, but works just fine for moving data, is right here. There's our SHA-1 sum. Boom. Matches that perfectly. Hi, chat and Mr. Stream. What did I miss? Nano, you didn't miss much. We're just going through Ansible stuff and just asking ourselves questions. Can we figure out these different pieces? We're back in the idea of learning Ansible through a Socratic method. So I'm walking you through labs that you could do on your own, but also we're asking questions about what command did we use to create a file on the servers? Can you set a different owner and permissions on the directory? So we did that. Yes, we understood. What happens when you run any of these commands a second time? Well, it doesn't need to happen again a second time, so it doesn't do anything. What happens when you run any of these? Do you expect the same output? Do you get the same output? No, you get different output because it's already been done. And Ansible goes and checks to make sure that things are in a state before it changes them. It's not like a shell script that just runs over the top of everything. It's a very different type of execution that can be very aware of what's going on. Green means nothing changes. Yeah. Also, other things green means, for you guys that have been through all this, Suresh, I know you've been further. Green also means we do not alert a handler. So you have tasks running, and when all the tasks are done, if they have alerted a handler, the handlers get called at the end and they do whatever handlers do. But if nothing ever changes, because you're rerunning it again, then it would not go. Why would you want to SK? I don't know what that is. Oh, you're asking for Suresh. Okay. Because he is SK, for you guys that don't know. Suresh. Yeah. I'd call you Suresh. Sorry. There you go. MD5 sum. Yeah, and yeah, that was it. Somebody had it over there too. MD5 sum, the file. Yep. That's perfect. And we could check it. Now, there's a problem with our file, though. Our file was the default file that came with the system. And this happens sometimes where we deploy things. This happens a lot with me with like node monitoring. So things like Datadog and like app trace type stuff. There's a Datadog. What's one of these other tools that does? There's some tools that do this stuff where when we push them over, I need to go change some stuff. And we can do it with a Jinja template. We absolutely could make any file we wanted to into a Jinja template, and we're going to look at those later. But if I don't want to do that, I just want to push it over and fix one little thing, there's a perfectly acceptable way to do it with a tool called Lineinfile. It said, let's fix a bad configuration. There's a line here, so if we just cat root config file, that var1 0000 was what came out of the box, but for whatever reason in all the world, we need to change it to 1111. That's maybe an API key that was given to us. Again, that's not a very good key, but let's say that was a JSON token that we typically have like these key strings that we get for like New Relic and Datadog. Those are the two that I've used. Use Ansible to ensure the state in dev and then just redeploy to UAT. Sure. Yeah. I've actually seen Ansible run really well to just make sure everything doesn't change. Yep. So I'm going to run this command. It's a Lineinfile module, so it's going to change stuff a little bit. And we'll look at the command here in a second when it's done. And it says, so here it is, Ansible servers. Well, where were our servers? Cat root hosts. There's our servers. It's going to hit both of those nodes in this host group. Ansible servers-i root hosts. That's the name of the inventory file. Good. The module is Lineinfile. We can go look up information about Lineinfile either in the browser like I like to, or directly in the command line through ansible-doc-s, and then the module name, which is Lineinfile. There's another one that's kind of newer that people use called replace. They're very similar. They both take regex, and you can do very simple stuff. So there's a few required things. You need to give the path to the file you want to change. The file we want to change is opt deployment config file.cfg, which is the config file that we just pushed over in one of our earlier commands. We're going to look for, with regex p, which is just regex, it's regex p, we're going to look for anything that starts with var1. So when you look at that data file, cat root config.cfg, var1 anchored to the beginning will only fit one of these three lines. Does everybody agree with that? Yes, right here. And we're going to replace it with the line var1 equals a bunch of ones. And you notice that these are kept in their own little single quotes and then double quote ends the whole thing out. Hey BlazeBits, how's it going? Thanks for the raid. I almost hopped in your channel earlier, BlazeBits. I saw you hop on, and I was doing some stuff for my college. I was writing some posts for my work that I'm doing for my doctorate, and then also I was teaching. So I didn't end up in your stream, but I was like, oh, BlazeBits is on. I'll go hang out and lurk over there, and then I didn't make it over there. But what were you guys working on? Probably some of your little hacking tools and stuff. I know you guys were playing a lot of that green hack or gray hack or whatever that is. So that's all good. We've run this. We've hit these servers, and now, by the way, Robodom, do you mind? I'll link it again. Hold on. I'll link this is the lab we're in. If anybody wants to do the lab with me, and we're asking ourselves questions over on the right. So as you're looking at the lab, you're doing the lab if you do it with me, and then you're also looking at the questions on the right above me here on the right to, add a little color and mainly to internalize things. Like, do I understand why these things are? Now, BlazeBits, I know you reference the Cookie Monster often for slowing things down. Were you around during the Cookie Monster time in the early Unix systems? Are you familiar? I don't ever know if anybody's familiar with Cookie Monster being one of the original Unix viruses. But Cookie Monster would pop up on your machine and it would say, give me a cookie. And if you did anything else, you were locked out. You were just locked out. You had to type cookie and then it would leave. Oh, the old hackers move. Okay, yeah. It is definitely, yeah. And you couldn't get your Unix terminal back without rebooting it or giving it a cookie. And then once you gave it a cookie, then you would get your terminal back for some other set amount of time. Cookie Monster is one of the first known Unix viruses. Yeah, Robodom. It may be the first known one, period. But for sure, it was the first, one of the first ones on Unix. Yeah. Yeah, Unix operators used to do that to each other. And at some random period of time throughout the day, Cookie Monster would take over your terminal, and until you typed in cookie, you could not get it back. So, unless you wanted to, reboot whatever you were doing, and that's just a hassle, especially back then. Shoot, even in the early 2000s, I used to work on IBM systems that if you powered them down and brought them back up, it took on average at least 45 minutes. Sweet name for a virus, though. Yeah. Cookie Monster was non-destructive, though. It just took over your terminal. I guess it doesn't go against confidentiality or integrity, but it definitely hits availability because you don't get your system back until you negotiate with the terrorists. That's on brand for IBM. BlazeBits, I could tell you guys some stories about when I was at Lockheed Martin and some of those big servers that we used to work on. And if they went down hard, it was 2 hours to come back up for the big P595 and 695 servers. They were huge. Yeah. Little mini denial of service. Yeah. Back when people weren't even calling it that, right? By the way, I'm going to rerun my Lineinfile command real quick, just for fun. It doesn't have to change anything. The first time it did change something, it replaced the line. The second time, it found the line as it was expected, so it just did it. So now I say go verify on all the systems. So we'll just run a little shell command to just cat the server, cat the file on each server. So this lab history, right? When you look at this lab, all this lab was a bunch of individual pieces that could have been done as a playbook. Much like I was telling you guys the example of thinking like I go to a Mexican restaurant and I order a taco, and a burrito, and somebody looks at the menu and goes, "Do you mean a number 7?" And I'm like, "No, I want taco." So we did all the individual pieces. But just doing it like this, one, it takes too much time. Two, there's a chance that I miss a step or I make a mistake. Suresh, I don't think there's a cert for Ansible alone. No. A Turtlebeard said the Socratic method of learning is awesome. Talk to give it local lugs. Yeah, Turtlebeard, I don't think there's any local lugs around me anymore. There was, 20 years ago I remember lugs out here in Phoenix, but I haven't looked them up or seen them. I decided to just make one online for all of us, just our professional Linux users group. So, yeah, you guys can go in there. Would you need to use a different Jinja template to give each node a different value for a variable? Adam, no. We could use one Jinja template, and I can stamp the variable to each of the servers based on decisions they have or facts that are on them. I can do all kinds of things. So I could use one Jinja template for stamping to all my different nodes if I need to, depending on what I'm trying to stamp. But something like this, I could definitely do. And then I can also feed in an environment file with keys, and it could accept the key based on values that were on the server. So there's all kinds of things we can do with this. again, to kind of make it, it's like a little Plinko machine. You drop all your servers in the top and they go the places they need to go. But in this ad hoc mode that we're doing, we get none of that. None of that cool stuff I've been describing happens until you go into playbook mode. This stuff is just me walking into a restaurant and going, I want a taco, and a burrito. I'm not getting any value. There's nothing being added together. There's no understanding of, hey, he wants a number 7 with, sour cream and all this other stuff. I think I'm using a Taco Bell menu as an example, but I'm saying Mexican restaurant and then I'm using Taco Bell, and that's probably the thing that'll get me canceled faster than anything, right? It's not Mexican food. Anyways, all right, I'm just kidding. That was that whole lab. But thinking about it over here, what regex value in the Lineinfile is the Lineinfile module looking for? It's looking for var1 mapped to the beginning of a line. So it's looking at the beginning of the line. What command might you use to test for the same kernel versions on all of these servers? So if I wanted to just rerun one of these commands, but I wanted to see if both of my servers were on the same kernel version, who knows what that command is? That's a systems administration command, but I can drop it in here and just run a shell command and see, like if I wanted to verify these servers were on the same one, yeah, uname. Uname-r will be good. Uname-a as well. And look at that. It'll feed that information back out to me. Now, some of us from earlier, you remember that I can also just do a setup. So I can use the setup module, and then I can give the argument Ansible _ kernel, right? And it should give, Ansible servers -i. Oh, it's filter equals, sorry. You got to give the argument filter equals Ansible kernel. And that'll give me the kernel too. So there's a lot of different ways to do something like that. I think all of these would be pretty good, right? More than one way to do it. That's an old saying in Perl. Tim Towdy, there is more than one way to do it, right? Okay. Now, I've broken a rule. Normally, I take a break. So I'm going to take a break real quick, and I'm going to pull up Ranger Cam. What's Ranger up to? Look at that dog. He hasn't even moved. I'm going to pull up Ranger Cam. I'm going to pull up my little hourglass. I'm not going to take 16 minutes. Don't worry. Put those over here. Any of you that want to work on the lab can keep doing it. And let's say quick break. Quick break. Quick break. Do the lab. And I'll just say 8 minutes. All right. So I'm going to go take a break real quick. There's Ranger. You guys want me to give Ranger a treat? I'll give Ranger a treat. All right. I'll be back. Don't anybody go anywhere. You're not authorized to leave just yet. Adam said, would you need... Okay, no, you already answered that. I already answered that. So Adam's good. All right, I'll be right back, guys. Stretch my legs for a minute. back. Did you guys see Ranger? You guys see Ranger eat his food? I think he looked away from you guys. I think he looked away from you while he was eating. I don't think Ranger even... Yeah, Hector, thanks for showing up. I'm hanging out here. Keep my green screen up. And then give it a few more minutes of break for people to show back up. Thanks for the raids, Hack the Planet, and Blaze Bits. I already saw you guys, but I'm just saying thank you. Treats are important. Yeah, Ranger didn't even bother turning around all the way. I don't know if you guys saw that. He's just kind of hanging out, being a Ranger dog. So as you're doing these labs, right, you're thinking about all these things on the right. Can I do each of these things? What command did we use to create a file on the server? Could you create a different file on the server? Could you, push the files, somewhere else? These are the kind of things that we want to know and be able to do with this type of tool, right? And Ansible is just a tool. It's only going to do the things that you tell it to do. You could do all the same things with Ansible with other tools like Bash and, but Ansible is a better way to do it for me. It is a better tool for me to hit most of my systems than the way I used to just do it with like looping over and pushing shell scripts and executing and stuff like that. So, okay. Yeah, Ranger got some treats. Now he's going to lick his bed for an hour because that's Ranger. I don't know if you guys saw that little chicken thing that I gave him. Like you squeeze it and it makes a little noise, but he doesn't chew on any of his toys. So that's like not his thing. So that's my dog though. All right, let's get ready for the next lab then. I'll just go here and say, okay, next lab is going to be staging files, but we're going to start doing it with playbooks. So, we'll do some playbook stuff, and then probably we'll just get through this I think it's this last lab. Hold on, let's look at this one. Yeah. So we'll do this one and the next one, and then this will be the end of part 1 for this, and then I'll do part 2 of the Socratic method for these, for the Ansible pieces. We've done all this stuff multiple times before on stream, but I'm just trying to show you guys that there's a lot of ways to learn this stuff, and there's a lot of things to think about and go do and all that kind of stuff. So I want you to have the tools in your toolbox to, we could just do a lab. We could go to any of these labs, guys, and I could just push next, done. And then we would all be qualified to go be Windows administrators, because that's what we do in the Windows world, right? Back when I was a Windows guy, that's all I did. Next, done. That was a long time ago. That was like over 20 years ago. But nowadays, I want you guys to do the labs and then think about what you're doing. Because remember, at the command line, there's only 2 things you do. You set values and you check values. There's only 2 things you ever do at a command line. Set values and check values. So, yeah, I think this stuff's useful for people, especially if you never sat down and did it. PowerShell's powerful. Yeah, I use PowerShell. I don't advertise it much, but we actually do have some of that up in our Discord. Some challenges on PowerShell and stuff. All right, so let's back out of this lab, and we'll go to lab 5. And lab 5 is a playbook to stage a tar.gz. So it's a basic version of what we just did, but we're going to do it in a playbook now. So I'm going to pin this over here, unpin on the Twitch side, unpin, and then pin this one. Boom. And I'll pin it on the YouTube side, so hopefully you guys can pull that out of YouTube chat over there. And make it a little bigger so you guys can read it. And then the thing is, verify your host file, create a deploy playbook called root deploy.yaml to push the file root deploy.tar.gz over to all servers in the opt directory. So that's a lot, right? But again, taking it apart, as systems engineers, sometimes we push files, and sometimes they're tar files, over to all of our different servers. I also showed you guys earlier that sometimes we pull them depending on how we need to push or pull them for whatever file systems. Actually, that's a drawing that I have right here. We were talking about this earlier. Ansible can push it all over, or you can have all the nodes pull it. There's different ways that can happen, right? That is not really something we're going to deal with right now, but that is an important thing to think about, is how we're moving data. It's always an important way always important to think about how you're moving data as a sysadmin. Sysadmin, sysengineer. Am I oversaturating some link that could be used for something else? Am I doing that in the middle of the day when other traffic should be getting where it needs to go? Like, there's all these thoughts that we have, right, as we understand our systems better. If you get stuck, you can find the answer file. I'm just going to cheat and find the answer file. And I'm going to say cat root hosts. So there's our host file. We've looked at this a lot, but I think it bears repeating. It's an inventory file. It's got a host group, and the host group has two targets, two things that we want to go hit. Okay. Then I can cat root deploy.yaml, and you will see sometimes in my labs it's YML, and sometimes it's YAML, and honestly it doesn't matter to Ansible, but I'm going to explain to you real quick why I do it, why I've done it that way and why it's different. Is because when I grew up first using Ansible files, it was always in Ansible YAML files. When I first grew up doing YAML files, and when I say that I mean early 2000 teens, whenever YAML came around, I was doing them through the Ansible perspective. So .yml is the way that they do it over there. But then I did a lot of Kubernetes, and in the Kubernetes space, people use YAML, and that's YAML, right? They're both YAML. But and then people just sit there and launch rocks at each other because it fucking matters if you have a .YAML or YML. And I'm going to tell you that I don't care, and it will slurp up either of them as long as the formatting's good. But you will see me having used both. And early labs are YML for me, and I think later ones are YAML. It just depends on where I was at as I was making them, or whether I was thinking about it or not. Most of the time I use YAML. It doesn't matter, guys. It doesn't matter. System will drink it in either way. All right. I didn't mean to do that. So here we go. Here's the file. We've got 3 dashes at the top. That denotes the start of a YAML file, right? If I had more dashes in this playbook somewhere, I could have 3 more dashes. That would be the start of a new YAML file inside of the same file. But you can do that. We're going to do a simple little header at the top of each of our playbooks. This is always going to be there. And it's going to give us an arbitrary name, start of the deployer playbook. And we're going to say what hosts we want to hit. In our case, we're going to hit the servers host group. So cat root hosts servers is going to point to control plane and node 01. So there we go, right? Come over here. Vars, we don't have any special variables we want to give it. We're not messing with anything here. Gather facts is going to be true. When we say gather facts, it runs setup. You guys saw setup earlier. It's like 16 pages of data. And Ansible is going to take all that and stuff it in its little sack that it's carrying with it through the entirety of this playbook. Ansible is going to have a tremendous amount of information that we can go reference for each node, or for, like, there's different ways it can be done. You can reference it as you're executing a play on the nodes, or at the end you can execute a read against all the files and then read the data out of each individual node if you want to. So there's a lot of different ways to do this, and we'll get into a lot of them, but some of the stuff you just have to kind of go learn and practice with, and then ask questions of the other guys and see how they've done it and stuff, because there's different ways to do this. Become is false because we're already root and it doesn't matter. Become, and then you can have become method, and there's different methods to sudo. In a system, sudo, su, there's a bunch of different ones. I don't even use any of them. I use sudo. And then here's our tasks. And our first task is to, we come down here, we only have one task in this playbook, and the name is an arbitrary name that we picked, and it says deploy, or copy deploy.tar.gz over to, and over at, and then it gives a time, Ansible date _ time .iso 8601 basic short, and that is going to show up in the playbook right there. Now, if you want to break this playbook, and I don't know if I say it over here, if you want to break this playbook, you can turn gather facts to false, and if you don't gather facts and run setup, you won't know the Ansible _ date _ time anything variable, and this thing will break fantastically all over itself. You guys want to see this thing bleed? We'll do it. And then we come down here. We'll break it, though. But we use the copy module. Now we give the arguments, source, destination, and I gave a checksum right here. I want to make sure that checksum is right. So I'm going to do the checksum is SHA-1 by default. So SHA-1 sum against root deploy.tar.gz, and they should be the same value right there. If they're not the same value, this is also going to break fantastically all over the place. Right? That's the best way for things to break, is to give, like, blow up big and show us the logging so that we can fix whatever's wrong with it, right? So I'm going to VI and break my thing real quick. Root deploy, .yaml. And we come down here, and I'm going to change my gather facts. Yeah, just real quick. I'm going to do a YYP, and I'll pound out the first one, and I'll change this one to false. I like to do that sometimes when I'm editing things, so that I can just get back the thing that I wanted before. But you don't have to do that. And then we come down here, and we can just run the playbook real quick. So we'll push that over. And look at how much more verbose the playbook is than what we were doing earlier with the ad hoc mode is just much weaker. But anyway, so we run the playbook. You might notice that I didn't have to say servers here. Well, I didn't have to say servers here because it's defined in the playbook. We could have also, knowing that servers is the entirety of the playbook, we could have used all right there. But all is extremely dangerous to put in your playbooks. Because if somebody ever runs a playbook with all, and they don't know what inventory they're running against, there's some new person that's just running stuff wherever they can find it, and they happen to run against your whole inventory, they will hit everything in your company. And what if that playbook has a reboot in it? What if that playbook has... There's all kinds of things that I do to try to protect my systems. But one of them, and you guys will see me do this later. Well, let's manually verify real quick that we pushed everything over. Okay. That's a quick little ad hoc mode to push it over. Watch this real quick. So I'm going to show you guys how I do it. This is a little more advanced, but it works. I go right here to host servers, and I change this to a variable survey hosts. So now, watch this. We're going to try to run this playbook again. It's going to break everywhere because it's an error. It can't run. And why can't it run? It's fine. Also this has to be true or this is going to fail. Right? That has to be back to true. Well, I guess I could have just done that. Anyways, it's still going to break everywhere. But the host field has an invalid value. It's got this variable, but it's not. That's a mess. So what I do then to run it is now I say extra vars. And then in there I say survey hosts equals servers. So now if you don't know how to do that, you can't run my playbooks. And you say, Scott, why would you ever do that? Because I've watched a very good, very talented engineer try to run a playbook, and he didn't understand the inventory, and he didn't understand that we had left all in there, and he tried to hit everything in the company at AAA. This was years ago. And I tell people when I tell that story, I say, hey, we would have been on the nightly news that night. We would have been completely down. We would have wrecked over 1,500 Linux boxes in such a way that we would have been rebuilding them. It would have probably cost us all our jobs, right? It would have been really bad. Yeah, it would have been literally like thousands of hours of work to get that stuff all back. Yeah, they would have been bad down because it was a base. So what it was a baseline for new servers to go to a certain CIS benchmark. Well, if you run baselines like that against old servers that have had changes and had whatever done to them, it'll wreck everything. So I write my code. I write my stuff like this. Just cat it. And then now if you don't know how to put survey hosts on the end of a playbook, you can't run my stuff. We don't get into that in any of these labs, but that's just one of those little tricks that I picked up over time. And you say, well, what about if you need to like take that and go put it into like Ansible automation platform or Tower or AWX or whatever you want to call it? And I tell you, well, I could do that. However, hold on real quick, guys. I got to take this call from my wife real quick. One second. Give me 1 second, guys. All right, I'm back, guys. The wife's on a mission for me. Hold on, I gotta text her real quick though. Hold on, I gotta text the wife. What is leaving tomorrow? Oh, gotta text her real quick. Okay. Texting the wife. She's getting me food. All right. I'm back. Sorry about that, guys. The wife's getting me food. So we did all the lab. I think if we hit check, this is a really short one because it's just the first part of that playbook. And I said, why might we want to check some of the file before we stage it? So I've talked to you guys about this before. This is another one of those ones that's like, it's not that I don't trust my other engineers, and it's not necessarily that I'm being a jerk about it, but I'm going to checksum this file in my playbook because what if somebody else in my company comes along with some other engineer with good intentions, somebody on my team that's like, hey, I got tasked by the GRC team to make sure that in any of these packages that we have, you know, and my manager talked to them without letting me know, even though I'm the tech lead and he typically lets me know this stuff. And that person goes and they're like, well, hey, I know that Scott had packaged this up before, but I'm going to go ahead and package up a newer version of, we need to use some newer Java because, yeah, I know about all that stuff that happened with, what was that big Java one a few years back that we had to patch crap out of everything for, Log4j, right? So they're like, oh God, Log4j, we got to patch all this Java stuff up. And then, yeah, so Log4j was huge, right? And they put a new version of some package in my deployer. And my deployer assumes maybe a certain path or something. My deployer script is all in there. Well, now I'm in a position now where in my playbook I'm pushing something over, and then later on we're gonna do a deployment here in a second of this, where we're gonna unpackage it and run a script and stuff. But now my stuff doesn't work, and I tell you guys all the time, I hate when stuff has my name on it and it doesn't work. So when I write stuff, and again, like, people are like, oh, Chad, try hard, whatever. I call it good engineering. I want my stuff to work if it has my name on it. That's simply it. That's all there is to it. And like, you could tell, you talk to people and say, hey, is Scott the smartest guy you work with? They'll say, no, Scott's not the smartest guy I work with, but his shit always works. Guarantee you anybody would say that about me. Well, except my home lab. My home lab never works because I don't ever work on my home lab. But I guarantee all my other stuff works well. And that's part of what I'm trying to show you guys is I will have this checksum. So if you go edit that, even with the best intentions, this thing will not work. This thing will go, can't do it, buddy. It's not the right thing. And then what would happen then is we would not break a deployment in front of other teams and in front of other managers and other projects. We would very quickly see, oh, this isn't going to work. Hold on, we got to go retool it. And then I'd be able to say, what the hell happened? We got to go back to this old version. And then I would probably have that thing versioned somewhere. And then I would make sure that version of my thing got deployed. Or if that really was a security concern, I would say, that's fine. We got to retool it and retest it. And that's all fine. But it's like, just, man, like, I can't have, I've had it too many times in my career where somebody they're well-intentioned. I am not saying anybody's trying to screw you over. Somebody's definitely not trying to make work for the whole team. They're just trying to do the right thing. They just don't know all the pieces, right? And that's a micro versus like a macro version of looking at things. And they're both useful, but not everybody gets like the whole view of things. I very rarely care about anything going on in an organization that's not Linux related, right? So I get it too. I focus down on the Linux stuff. But sometimes people are like, oh, all these other things have to happen. And I'm like, all right, I get it. We got to do that backup system. We got to do that test or whatever. All right. So we did all this, and now there's a new lab. So we answered all those questions. Let's go do this last lab. I got to get off of here in a second because the wife's coming home. The wife told me I could stream as long as I wanted until she got back, and then we got to hang out. So lab 6 is here. So on the YouTube side, and then I will pin it for you guys on the Twitch side. Actually, I'm just going to unpin this old one, and I'm just going to drop it in on the YouTube side. I'm not going, or on the Twitch side. I'm not going to pin it on the Twitch side. Here's the lab, and I want you guys to think about the questions on the right as we do this. And it says, how does the lab build on the previous one? This is important. We're going to verify our host file, cat root hosts, And then I say create a deployment called root deploy.yaml to push over this root deploy.tar.gz to the opt directory on all the servers, unpackage it, and then run the installer.sh. So we've got to do all these things now. And there's our answer file. It's already there if you want it. Actually, shoot the wife. The wife might have just gotten home. Cat root deploy.yaml. Right? And now it's a lot longer, but the start of the file is exactly the same as before. All this is the same. Nothing changed. Push it over, get it in the opt deploy.tar directory. Once it's over there, let's go ahead and make a new directory called opt_my_app. Then let's unarchive that into there, right? Then we're going to make the installer script executable. That's down in opt_my_app deploy deployer.sh. This is a deployer script now. Then we're going to run the deployer script, and here's a new thing. We're going to register everything we can know about what happened back to the screen, so we have it. Now Ansible's going to go stuff it in its sack, and Ansible's walking along with the sack full of variables. And one of them on both servers will be installer_output dot a whole bunch of things. And then we're going to debug what we know about it. It's just going to dump it to the screen so we can see it. Is it like st out to a variable? Yeah, well, so look, this register is going to capture everything about that variable, including the std out, which is standard out, and standard error. So let's look at it, right? Because one test is worth 1,000 expert opinions. Let's run this. There's all the pieces. It tells you about them all. We just talked through them. And I'm going to deploy it. I'm going to deploy it. And when we look at it, this will be useful to see and kind of hold in your hands. And it's going to deploy it at that time, right? That time is something that we get from gather facts. Do all this stuff. And now it's going to give us this big output as a debug. I want to debug and see what happened. And this is one of those installer outputs. So when the installer ran that shell script, it registered a variable back. And here's all the pieces of it. So installer_output dot changed is true. Important to know, the variable output of a shell command will always be changed. It cannot be okay. And you say, wait, hold on. I saw all these other times when things came back green and they were okay. Shell can never be okay. Shell will always be changed. And you say, what do you mean? And what I'm telling you is because Ansible, when it launches the shell command off, it loses control of what's happening. In all the other modules that are called, all the other things, Ansible is in control with Python the entire time. In only the shell command does it just launch a cannon off into the night. And it listens for when it's done, and it gathers all this information. But in that time in between, Ansible was no longer in control, so it has always changed true. Now, what you might say is, well, does that cause a problem of idempotency? It absolutely does. You cannot have a truly idempotent playbook that runs shell. What do I mean by that? This will always be true. This will always be changed, no matter what. So, knowing that, right? So this will always come back yellow right here when you run the installer because it's shell command. The reason that's super important is because if you understand that, okay, now my installer script has to be idempotent for me to be able to run this multiple times, then you can build your idempotency back in. But strictly speaking, Ansible is no longer idempotent. I need you guys to know that because that's the big selling point of the cult of Ansible. If you want to wear the robes of the cult of Ansible with me, right, for people that are cultists in Ansible, I like Ansible, but I'm not a cultist for it. You do have to know that I should be able to run a playbook over and over again, and if it doesn't need to change anything, it won't. This will always launch that script, and if that script reboots that box every time, Ansible has no control over it. Yeah, the cult of Ansible. Suresh, we're next time they have this big, they've got a big scale thing out in California every year. Me and the guys are going to go out there, and we're going to have QR codes on our shirt. That's the wife. The wife's home now. Okay, I got to get off of here, but this is the information, and then you hit check, and it should be good on the lab. And we deployed it. It also took about 10 seconds to run. No, it took 5 seconds to run because all that script does is say I would deploy some stuff, sleeps for 5 seconds, and then it says I would be deploying some more stuff. That's all that thing does. All right, I got to go find somebody to raid. I got to get out of here. I appreciate you guys all coming. Remember, Discord is always free. You guys are allowed to hang out down on Discord all you guys want. And let's go find. I got to find somebody right on the Twitch side. On the YouTube side, I appreciate you guys coming by. Keep working on this stuff. It's valuable, and it can. I think it can help you out quite a bit. All right. I don't see anybody that I know similar size. I don't see anybody else out there. Somebody's doing Golang. We can go hit him up. I don't know him, but we'll go over there. I think he's... Oh, no, he's doing different language. Sorry, guys. Can't do that. Different language. That's not fair. All right, I'm just going to drop off of here then. You guys go find other stuff. Scatter, right? Or what we call in